The spring morning had started like any other Saturday in Elena Vale's carefully constructed new life. She'd woken in her small studio apartment as golden light filtered through sheer curtains, stretched carefully to ease the persistent lower back ache that had become her constant companion, and dressed in the loose linen dress that had become her uniform, comfortable, modest, and most importantly, concealing. 6 months. That's how long it had been since she'd walked away from Roman Vescari, from the penthouse that had felt more like a gilded cage than a home, from the man whose touch had once made her feel alive and whose lies had nearly destroyed her. 6 months since she'd discovered the truth about who he really was, not just a wealthy businessman with legitimate investments, but something far darker. Something that terrified her. 6 months since she'd discovered she was pregnant. Elena gathered her supplies into her worn canvas bag, sketchbooks, pencils, watercolors, the portable stool that saved her increasingly uncomfortable back, her freelance work doing botanical illustrations for local garden centers and organic food companies paid enough to cover rent and groceries if she was careful. It wasn't the life of luxury she'd briefly known as Roman's wife, but it was honest. It was safe. It was hers. The farmer's market at Morrison Square had become part of her weekend routine. She'd sketched the heirloom tomatoes, the wild sunflowers, the exotic herbs that one vendor grew in a greenhouse passed down through 4 generations. The farmers loved having an artist capture their produce, often paying her in fresh vegetables and the occasional cash tip. More than that, the market felt wholesome, filled with families and retirees and young couples, worlds away from the dangerous glamour of Roman's universe. Elena navigated the crowded aisles slowly, one hand resting unconsciously on the swell of her belly beneath the fabric. At 24 weeks, she was unmistakably pregnant to anyone who looked closely, but the flowing cut of her dresses and the way she carried her bag strategically in front helped maintain the anonymity she desperately needed. She'd been so careful. No social media, no contact with anyone from her old life, even changing her hair from the sleek, dark bob Roman had loved to longer waves highlighted with warm honey tones. "Elena, over here!" Margot, who sold organic lavender and honey, waved from her stall. "I saved you some of the late-season blooms. Thought you might want to sketch them before they're gone." Elena smiled, genuine warmth flooding through her. This simple kindness, this uncomplicated friendship, was what she'd craved during those isolated months in Roman's world, where every interaction had been calculated, where danger lurked beneath polished surfaces. "You're an angel, Margot." Elena settled onto her stool beside the vendor's table, arranging her supplies. The morning sun caught the purple-gray of the lavender, and she lost herself in the familiar meditation of observation and creation. Pencil moving across paper, the world narrowing to color, form, light. She didn't notice the black SUV that pulled up to the market's edge. Didn't see the tall figure that emerged, flanked by 2 men in dark suits. Didn't feel the weight of a gaze she knew as intimately as her own heartbeat until it was too late. Elena looked up from her sketch, perhaps sensing some shift in the atmosphere, some collective holding of breath among the Saturday morning crowd. And there, cutting through the sea of families and flower vendors like a shark through shallow water, was Roman Viscari. Time seemed to fracture. Her pencil slipped from suddenly nerveless fingers. The world tilted sickeningly. He looked exactly the same, and completely different. The same dark hair, though perhaps cut slightly shorter. The same broad shoulders filling out an obviously expensive charcoal suit that somehow didn't look out of place even among the farmers in their worn jeans. The same striking features that had first captivated her 3 years ago at a gallery opening. Strong jaw, full mouth, eyes so dark they appeared black in certain light. But there was something harder about him now, something more dangerous in the way he moved. Or perhaps she'd simply learned to see what had always been there. Their eyes met across 30 feet of crowded market. Elena watched recognition flash across his face, surprise, relief, something that looked almost like pain. His step faltered, just for a moment, and then his gaze dropped to where her hand had instinctively moved, pressed protectively against the curve of her stomach. Even from this distance, even through the loose drape of linen, she saw the exact moment understanding hit him. Saw his entire body go rigid, saw his jaw clench, saw his hands curl into fists at his sides. "No," Elena whispered. "No, no, no." She stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her stool. Her bag. She needed her bag. She needed to run, to disappear before he reached her, before this fragile piece she'd built came crashing down around her.
Elena, honey, are you okay? Margot's concerned voice seemed to come from very far away. You look like you've seen a ghost. More like the devil himself, Elena thought wildly. Her hands shook as she tried to gather her scattered supplies. A pencil rolled under the table. She left it. But Roman was already moving, cutting through the crowd with the kind of focused intensity that made people unconsciously step aside.
The two men flanking him, bodyguards she now understood, though 6 months ago she'd believed they were simply assistants, cleared a path with their mere presence. Elena turned, looking desperately for an exit, but the market was crowded, the aisles packed with weekend shoppers. She'd have to push through mothers with strollers, elderly couples examining heirloom tomatoes, children sticky with fresh squeezed lemonade. By the time she fought her way free, he'd have her. Elena. His voice reached her first, low and rough with an emotion she couldn't name. Elena, please, don't run. She turned to face him, chin lifted even as her heart threatened to beat out of her chest. He'd stopped a few feet away, as if afraid to come closer, as if she were a wild thing that might bolt. His eyes, those impossibly dark eyes she'd once lost herself in, moved over her with an intensity that felt almost physical. Her face, her shoulders, the curve of her belly that she couldn't hide now, not from him, not when he was looking at her like she was water in the desert, and he was dying of thirst. How far along? The question came out hoarse, raw. That's none of your business. Elena's voice shook, but she forced the words out. Around them, the market had gone subtly quiet. People were pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. Margot had moved closer, protective, probably ready to call security if Elena gave the word. None of my... Roman's laugh was sharp, almost painful. Elena, you're carrying my child. I'm carrying my child. She emphasized the possessive, putting every ounce of conviction she could muster into it. You lost any claim to this baby when you lied to me about everything that mattered. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, anger, resignation. I never lied about loving you. You lied about everything else. Elena could feel tears threatening, hot and humiliating. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry if this moment ever came, wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing how completely he'd broken her. You let me think you were a legitimate businessman. You let me believe the danger was minimal, that the guns and the bodyguards were just precautions. You let me live in your world without telling me that world was built on violence and crime, and not here. Roman's voice dropped, taking on a harder edge. His eyes cut to the surrounding crowd, many of whom were now openly watching the confrontation. This isn't the place for this conversation. There is no conversation. Elena gripped her bag tighter, using it like a shield. I left. I'm not coming back. This baby is mine, and you need to walk away. You know I can't do that. He took a step closer, and Elena forced herself not to retreat. You know I won't. You don't have a choice. Neither do you. His eyes locked on hers, and she saw the absolute certainty there, the implacable will that had probably served him well in whatever dark dealings filled his days. You disappeared 6 months ago without a word, without a trace. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Do you have any concept of what I... He stopped, jaw clenching. But I let you go. I respected your choice to leave me even though it killed me. But this? His gaze dropped again to her stomach. This changes everything, and you know it. The only thing this changes is that now I have even more reason to stay away from you, Elena shot back. I won't raise my child in your world, Roman. I won't let my baby grow up surrounded by violence and lies and danger. You think you're safe out here? Something almost like fear flashed across his face. Elena, the moment anyone who wants to hurt me discovers you're carrying my child, you become the biggest target imaginable. You're not protecting this baby by hiding. You're making yourself vulnerable, making both of you easy prey. The words sent ice down her spine because she'd had the same fear herself, late at night when sleep wouldn't come. But she'd convinced herself she'd been careful enough, hidden enough, that no one from his world would ever find her in this new life she'd built. Except he'd found her. If Roman could find her, others could too. I've been fine for 6 months. but her voice lacked conviction now. You've been lucky for 6 months. Roman's tone gentled slightly. But luck runs out, especially in my world. Let me protect you. Both of you. Like you protected me before? The question came out bitter. When you kept me locked away in that penthouse, never telling me the real reason I couldn't go certain places, see certain people? When you made me a prisoner and called it love? Pain transformed his features. I never meant to cage you. I was trying to control me, to keep me contained where it was convenient for you, to keep you alive. The words erupted from him with surprising force, and several nearby shoppers actually jumped. Roman seemed to realize how he sounded because he dragged a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. Elena, please, we can't do this here. Come somewhere we can actually talk. Somewhere private. Hey, so you can manipulate me? Convince me to come back? She shook her head. I know how this works, Roman. You're very good at making people do what you want. But not this time. Not with this. I'm not trying to manipulate you. Then leave. If you really care about me, about this baby, you'll walk away and let us live in peace. For a long moment, he just looked at her, and Elena saw a war playing out behind his eyes. Then he pulled something from his jacket, a business card, and held it out. When she didn't take it, he set it carefully on Margot's table. My private number, he said quietly. It hasn't changed. When you realize I'm right about the danger, and you will realize it, Elena, call me. Anytime, day or night. I'll come. I won't call. You will. He said it with absolute certainty, and that confidence infuriated her more than anything else he'd said. Because despite everything you think about me, despite every lie you believe I told, you know one thing is absolutely true. I would die before I let anything happen to you or our child. He turned then, nodding to his men, and began to walk away. Elena felt something lurch in her chest. Relief, regret, she wasn't sure. But then he paused, looking back over his shoulder. 6 months, he said softly. I'll give you 6 months to come to me on your own. But the moment this baby is born, if you haven't already accepted my protection, I'm filing for custody, full custody. And Elena, I have lawyers who've never lost a case. I have resources you can't imagine. I have evidence that you knew about my business when you married me, that you benefited from it, that you... That's a lie. The accusation burst from her. I didn't know. You kept it all hidden. Can you prove that? His expression had gone carefully blank, and she realized she was seeing the other Roman now, the Mafia boss, the ruthless businessman, the man who'd built an empire on calculated moves and strategic intimidation. Can you prove in court that you had no idea where the money came from, that you never suspected? Because I can paint a very different picture. A picture of a woman who enjoyed the lifestyle, who asked no questions because she didn't want to know the answers. A woman who only developed a conscience when it became inconvenient. Elena felt like he'd slapped her. You wouldn't. I would do anything to protect my child, even from their own mother, if necessary. He held her gaze, and she saw he meant every word. 6 months, Elena. Think very carefully about what you want the future to look like, for all three of us. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd with his bodyguards flanking him, leaving Elena standing amid the lavender and honey with her heart in her throat and her carefully constructed piece shattered into a million pieces. Holy hell, Margot breathed beside her. Who the fuck was that? Elena couldn't answer. She was too busy trying not to be sick. The panic attack hit as soon as Elena made it back to her apartment. She barely got the door closed before her knees gave out, and she sank to the floor with her back against the wood, gasping for air that wouldn't seem to fill her lungs properly. Roman knew. Roman knew about the baby. And he'd threatened her. Actually threatened to take her child away. The worst part, the absolutely terrifying part, was that she believed he could do it. Roman Vescry's power wasn't limited to whatever dark dealings he conducted behind closed doors. He had legitimate connections, too, had introduced her to judges and politicians and lawyers during their brief marriage, people who owed him favors, people who wouldn't ask too many questions about helping him secure custody of his child. Her hands moved to her stomach, feeling the baby move beneath her palms, a flutter that had only recently started, like butterflies or bubbles. The beginning of a whole new person making their presence known.
I won't let him take you, she whispered. I won't. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. What could she really offer this child? A studio apartment that barely fit a crib? Freelance income that varied wildly from month to month? No family support. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 20, leaving her utterly alone in the world. That loneliness was what had made her vulnerable to Roman in the first place, what had made his attention feel like salvation. Roman, on the other hand, could offer everything. Private schools, security, a future free from financial worry.
He could give their child the world, but at what cost? Elena forced herself to her feet, moving mechanically through the familiar space. Kettle on for tea. Change into comfortable clothes. Try to pretend her world hadn't just exploded. The business card sat on her small kitchen counter where she'd thrown it, Roman's name embossed in black on heavy cardstock. She should tear it up, throw it away, forget he'd ever found her. Instead, she left it there, a white rectangle of possibility and threat that she couldn't quite bring herself to destroy. The afternoon passed in a blur of anxiety and restless movement. Elena tried to work on a commission, a series of herb illustrations for a local restaurant, but her hand wouldn't stay steady. She tried to read, but the words swam meaninglessly across the page. Finally, she gave up and turned on the television, letting mindless cooking shows wash over her while the baby performed their gentle acrobatics and her mind spun in increasingly frantic circles. What if Roman was right about the danger? What if someone from his world did discover her? She'd been so focused on escaping from him that she'd never really considered what else might be out there, what other threats might exist in the shadows she'd been trying so desperately to avoid. The knock on her door came just after sunset, and Elena's heart stopped. She approached slowly, peering through the peephole, half expecting to see Roman standing there with that intense expression and those two knowing eyes. But it wasn't Roman. It was one of his men, the older one, with graying hair and a face that suggested he'd seen things that would give other people nightmares. Miss Vale. His voice was surprisingly gentle through the door. My name is Marcus. I work for Mr. Vescari. He asked me to provide protection detail. I'll be stationed outside your apartment tonight. You won't see me, won't hear me, but I'll be here, just in case. I don't want... Elena started, but he cut her off. Not negotiable, ma'am. Mr. Vescari was very clear. You can choose to accept his protection voluntarily, or he can ensure you have it anyway. This way is easier, less disruptive to your life. This is stalking, Elena said, hating how her voice shook. This is harassment. This is keeping you alive. Marcus's tone didn't change, still calm and professional. There's a manila envelope by your door, security footage from 3 days ago. Someone's been following you, Ms. Vale. Someone who isn't one of ours. Elena's blood turned to ice. She looked down and, sure enough, saw the edge of a manila envelope that had been slid under her door while she was lost in her spiral of anxiety. Could be nothing, Marcus continued. Could be a private investigator hired by someone curious about Mr. Vescari's personal life. Could be a journalist looking for a story. Or it could be something worse. Mr. Vescari isn't willing to take that chance, neither should you. Elena bent slowly, retrieving the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were several printed photographs, grainy surveillance-style images that showed her at the farmer's market, at the grocery store, walking to her apartment building. In each photo, a figure in a dark jacket lurked in the background. Different locations, same person, always watching. How had she not noticed? How had she been so careless? Mr. Vescari's offer stands, Marcus said through the door. You don't have to go back to him. You don't have to reconcile or forgive or anything else you're not ready for. But let him provide security. Let him keep you and the baby safe. That's all he wants right now. But that's not all he wants, Elena whispered, but she wasn't sure Marcus heard her. I'll be right outside, ma'am. You need anything? You just open the door and call out. Have a good evening. She heard his footsteps retreat, settling somewhere close but out of sight. True to his word, she couldn't hear him after that. But she knew he was there. Knew Roman had already inserted himself back into her life, whether she wanted it or not. Elena looked at the business card again, then at the surveillance photos, then down at her stomach where her baby, their baby, continued their oblivious dancing. She'd thought leaving Roman meant freedom. She'd thought distance meant safety. But maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe she'd never really escaped at all. Maybe the danger had been there all along, and she'd just been too angry and hurt and scared to see it. The question was, which was more dangerous? The world she'd left behind, or the vulnerability she'd embraced by running from it? Sleep didn't come. Elena lay in her bed, watching shadows move across the ceiling, hyper-aware of Marcus's presence just beyond her door. The surveillance photos sat on her nightstand, and every time she closed her eyes, she imagined that dark-jacketed figure breaking through her locks, getting to her before Roman's protection could. At 2 a.m., the baby's movements woke her from the light doze she'd finally fallen into. She got up to use the bathroom, a constant necessity these days, and found herself standing in front of the window, looking out at the sleeping city. A black SUV sat parked across the street, so obviously a guard vehicle that she wondered if Roman wanted her to see it, wanted her to understand how completely he could surround her if he chose. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, though she suspected she knew who it was before she even looked. Can't sleep either. The nursery is ready, has been for 3 months. I kept hoping you'd come back before... The text cut off, as if he'd decided not to finish the thought. Elena stared at the words, hating the way her heart clenched. He'd prepared a nursery? While she'd been hiding in this studio apartment, trying to figure out where a crib would even fit, he'd been setting up a room for their baby? She should delete the message, should block the number, should maintain the boundaries she'd worked so hard to establish. Instead, she found her fingers moving across the screen. What color did you paint it? The response came immediately, soft gray with white trim. I didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl, so I went neutral. There's a mural, a tree with flowers and birds. The artist spent 2 weeks on it. I can send you pictures if you want. Elena closed her eyes against the tears that threatened. This was manipulation, had to be manipulation. He was trying to make her see him as a caring father-to-be rather than the dangerous man who'd built an empire on violence. Why are you doing this? Because it's my child. Because I missed 6 months of this pregnancy, and I'll be damned if I miss another day. Because despite everything you think about me, everything I am, I want to be a father. Want to be there for every moment. You threatened to take my baby away. The pause was longer this time. I threatened to take our baby away if you kept putting yourself in danger. There's a difference. Elena, please. I'm not trying to steal our child. I'm trying to protect both of you. That's all I've ever tried to do. By lying to me? By keeping me locked away? By keeping you alive? Do you have any idea how many people would love to hurt me through you? How many enemies I've made? You were safer not knowing, safer behind those walls. I was suffocating behind those walls. I know that now, but at the time I thought if I could just keep you separate from it all, keep you clean and safe and untouched by the darkness, you could be my light, my reason to be something better than I was. Elena slid down the wall, sitting on her floor in the dark, phone clutched in her hand, crying silently so Marcus wouldn't hear through the door. You can't build something good on a foundation of lies. I know, but maybe we could build something new, something honest. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to come back as my wife. I'm asking you to let me be a father, to let me keep you both safe while we figure out what comes next. And if I say no, then I meant what I said at the market. I'll wait until the baby is born, and then I'll fight for custody. I don't want to, Elena. The thought of going to war with you makes me sick, but I will do it if that's the only way to keep my child safe. From me? From whoever is in those photographs. From anyone who might use you or the baby to get to me. From a life of poverty and struggle that you're too proud to admit you can't sustain alone. The truth of that last part stung because he wasn't wrong. Her savings were nearly depleted. Her freelance income barely covered expenses. She'd been trying not to think about what would happen when the baby came, when she couldn't work as much, when medical bills started piling up. I hate you for this, she typed. I know. But you'll hate me more if something happens to you or our baby, and I did nothing to prevent it. Come to the penthouse tomorrow. See the nursery. See the security measures I've put in place. See that I'm serious about doing this right. Then make an informed decision instead of one based on fear and anger. Why should I trust you? Because 6 months ago, I let you walk away even though it destroyed me. Because I could have tracked you down in a week, but I gave you space to breathe and think. Because right now, I'm asking instead of demanding. That has to count for something. Elena looked at the surveillance photos again, at the stranger who'd been watching her for days without her knowledge. Then she looked at her tiny apartment, at the corner where she'd hoped to squeeze a crib, at the precarious life she'd built on hope and determination. One visit. That's all I'm promising. That's all I'm asking. 10 a.m. I'll send a car. I'll take the bus. Elena, bus or nothing, I need to feel like I have some control here. Another pause. Fine. But Marcus rides with you. Non-negotiable. She wanted to argue, but she was tired. So tired. Fine. Thank you. Get some sleep. Both of you need rest. She didn't respond, just set the phone aside and climbed back into bed. But sleep still wouldn't come, because she'd just agreed to walk back into the world she'd fought so hard to escape. And some part of her, the part she didn't want to acknowledge, wasn't entirely sure she'd ever left. The bus ride across the city the next morning felt surreal. Marcus sat 2 rows behind her, close enough to intervene but far enough to give her breathing room. Elena kept her hand on her stomach, feeling the baby's movements, trying to convince herself she was doing the right thing. The penthouse building rose above the financial district like a monument to wealth and power. Elena had lived here for 8 months, but as the doorman, still the same one, who nodded at her with surprise and something like relief, opened the door, she felt like she was entering foreign territory. The private elevator required a key card. Marcus produced one, apparently issued specifically for this visit, and they rose in silence through 30 floors of luxury apartments before the elevator opened directly into Roman's penthouse. It looked the same, all floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive minimalism, the kind of design that screamed money so loudly it didn't need to say anything else. But there were changes too. A couch she didn't recognize in the living room, new artwork on the walls, and there, just visible down the hallway, an open door she'd never seen open before. "Mr. Viscari is in his office taking a call," Marcus said quietly. "He asked me to show you to the nursery. Take your time. He'll join you when he's free." Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to demand they do this on her terms, in her timeline. But curiosity pulled at her, the need to see what Roman had created for their baby without her input, without her presence. The nursery was the 3rd door on the left, and when Marcus pushed it open, Elena's breath caught. It was perfect. Too perfect, maybe. A room pulled from some designer's dream of what a baby's space should be. The walls were indeed soft gray, the trim white and clean. But it was the mural that stopped her heart. An enormous tree stretched across one wall, its branches spreading to the ceiling, and among the leaves bloomed flowers in soft pastels, roses and peonies and cherry blossoms, while birds in flight wove between the branches. It was whimsical and peaceful and utterly beautiful. The crib was white, simple, but clearly expensive. A rocking chair sat by the window, positioned to catch the morning light. Shelves held books and stuffed animals, organized with a precision that made her heart ache because it meant Roman had chosen each item himself, had thought about their baby, had prepared for this child while she'd been hiding across the city. "There's a changing table with all the supplies," Marcus said, pointing. "And that door connects to a full bathroom. Mr. Viscari had it renovated specifically for the nursery, easier for night feedings and changes." Elena walked slowly into the room, running her hand over the crib's railing. A mobile hung above it, more birds, soft fabric ones in muted colors that would dance in the air when the baby moved. She touched one gently, setting it swaying. "I'll leave you alone," Marcus said. "Mr. Viscari will be along shortly." Then she was alone in the nursery her ex-husband had built, surrounded by evidence of a hope she hadn't let herself feel. She sank into the rocking chair, closed her eyes, and let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it might be like to actually use this room, to sit here in the middle of the night with her baby, rocking them back to sleep while the city glittered beyond the windows, to have help, resources, security, to not be alone. "I didn't know if you'd actually come." Elena's eyes flew open. Roman stood in the doorway, and for a moment they just looked at each other. He'd abandoned the suit for dark jeans and a black sweater, somehow looking both more casual and more dangerous. His hair was disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he'd slept about as well as she had. "I almost didn't," she admitted. He stepped into the room but maintained his distance, leaning against the wall near the door. "What do you think?" "It's beautiful. You hired someone?" "An artist I work with sometimes. She does murals for children's hospitals. I told her I wanted something peaceful, something full of life and hope." His eyes moved over her face, searching for something. I wanted our child to grow up surrounded by beauty instead of darkness. That's ironic, coming from you. The words came out sharper than she'd intended, but Roman just nodded. I know what I am, Elena. What I've done. But this, he gestured at the nursery, this is what I want to build. Not more violence, not more fear.
Something clean, something good. You can't separate yourself from your world that easily. I know, but I'm trying. He pushed off from the wall, moving closer but still maintaining careful distance. Let me show you something. He led her out of the nursery, down the hall to his office. Elena had only been in here a handful of times during their marriage. This was Roman's private domain, where business happened behind closed doors.
But now he opened those doors wide, gesturing for her to enter. The office was all dark wood and leather, masculine and intimidating. But on the desk sat a laptop, and Roman opened it, pulling up a series of files. This is every legitimate business I own, he said, clicking through documents. Real estate holdings, investment portfolios, restaurants, a security consulting firm. All completely legal, all generating substantial income. And this? He opened another folder. This is my exit strategy. Elena leaned closer, scanning the documents. They outlined a systematic dismantling of what the files carefully called his legacy operations, territories being sold or transferred, partnerships being dissolved, relationships being severed. I started this 3 months ago, Roman said quietly. Before I knew about the baby, before I even knew where you were. I started it because the night you left, you asked me if this was the life I wanted our future children to grow up in, and I realized the answer was no. I realized I'd become something I never wanted to be. So you're just walking away, just like that? Elena couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. Not just like that. It's complicated, dangerous even. There are people who don't want me to leave, who see it as weakness or betrayal. But I'm doing it carefully, strategically, burning bridges in a way that doesn't get me killed. He looked at her directly. I want out, Elena. Not just for you or the baby. For me. Because I'm tired of being this person. She wanted to believe him. Some part of her that had never stopped loving him desperately wanted to believe that the man she'd fallen for was still in there somewhere, trying to claw his way back to the light. How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? She asked. Another way to control me? You don't. You won't. Not until I've actually done it, proven myself over time. He closed the laptop, turning to face her fully. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith, to trust me one more time, to let me prove that I can be the man you needed me to be when we first met, the father our child deserves. And if I can't, if the trust is too broken, pain flashed across his face, then we figure out how to co-parent, how to keep our child safe and loved even if we can't be together.
But Elena, his voice dropped, became intimate. I'm hoping we can find our way to something more, not the marriage we had. Something new, something honest. The baby kicked hard, a sharp jab against Elena's ribs, and she gasped softly. Roman's eyes immediately dropped to her stomach. Is the baby okay? Just kicking. They've gotten stronger lately. Without thinking, Elena took his hand, placing it against her belly where the baby was moving. There, feel that? Roman's entire body went still. His hand was warm against her stomach, and when the baby kicked again, his breath caught. They're really in there, really alive, really ours. Tears filled his eyes, actual tears which Elena had never seen in all their time together. This hard, dangerous man was crying at the simple miracle of their baby's movement, and something in her chest cracked open. I've missed so much already, he whispered. Please don't make me miss any more. Please, Elena. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I broke your trust in the worst possible way, but our baby deserves a father who's present, who's trying, who's fighting to be better. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the baby move beneath both their hands, feeling the weight of this impossible decision crushing down on her. Stay safe but alone, or risk her heart and her child's future on a man who'd already proven he could lie to her face for months? I need conditions, she finally said. If I agree to stay here, to accept your protection, I need absolute control over certain things. Name them. I want my own space, not the master bedroom,
not sharing your bed. A separate wing of the penthouse with my own entrance if possible. Done. The guest suite has its own access via the secondary elevator.
Well, I want access to all your financial records. I want to see exactly where the money comes from. No more secrets.
You'll have complete transparency. I'll set you up with my accountant. And I want the final say in how our child is raised. Schools, activities, values. If I think something is too dangerous or too connected to your old world, you back off. Roman hesitated on that one. Within reason. I won't let you shelter our child from reality entirely. But yes, you'll have significant control over those decisions. We'll make them together. Not together. Me. I make them. You support them. Elena, those are my terms, Roman. Take them, or I walk out of here and you can explain to a judge why you thought total control was more important than our child having their mother. A muscle worked in his jaw, but finally he nodded. Fine. You have final say, but I want equal time. I want to be present for doctor's appointments, birthing classes, all of it. I don't want to be shut out. You'll be present, but as a supportive co-parent, not as my husband. I understand. And I want that in writing. A legal agreement that protects both of us, but especially protects our child. I'll have my lawyers draw something up today. Elena pulled her hand back, breaking the contact. Roman's hand lingered for just a moment before he lowered it, and she saw the loss in his expression. I'm not promising anything beyond this arrangement, she said firmly. I'm not promising reconciliation or forgiveness or love. I'm promising to give our child the best possible start, and that means having you present and active in their life. But us? We're over. For now. Forever. We'll see. He said it gently, without arrogance, like he knew something she didn't. People change, Elena. I'm living proof of that. And if I can change, maybe we can too. She wanted to argue, but she was exhausted. Exhausted from fighting, from running, from trying to build a life on nothing but determination and fear. Show me the guest suite, she said instead. I want to see where I'd be staying. Roman led her through the penthouse to a wing she'd barely explored during her marriage. The guest suite was spacious: bedroom, sitting room, private bathroom, and a small kitchenette. Windows overlooked the city, letting in floods of natural light. There's the secondary elevator access, Roman pointed to an unmarked door. Uses a different key card. You can come and go without seeing me if you prefer. Marcus or one of the other security team will always be available if you need an escort, but you're not a prisoner. Never again. Elena walked through the space, imagining her things here, imagining mornings waking up in this bed instead of her cramped studio. Imagining the nursery just down the hall, close enough for midnight feedings, but not so close she'd feel trapped. I need to think about this, she said finally. I need a few days to... No. She turned, surprised by the firmness in his voice. No, Roman repeated, though his tone was gentler now. The person following you in those photographs disappeared yesterday. That could mean nothing. Could mean they got bored or got what they needed. Or it could mean they're planning something, waiting for the right moment. I need you here, where I know you're protected, where an entire security system stands between you and anyone who might want to hurt you. Take all the time you need to decide about everything else, but you stay here while you're deciding. You can't just, I can and I am. Call it protective custody. Call it concern for my child's well-being. Call it whatever you want. But you don't leave this building without a full security detail. And preferably, you don't leave it at all until we're sure the threat is gone. Elena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Because she could see in his eyes that this wasn't negotiable, that Roman would physically prevent her from leaving if necessary. And somewhere underneath her anger at his high-handedness, she was terrified he might be right. Fine, she said. I'll stay. But I'm calling my landlord about my apartment. I'm not giving it up. If this doesn't work, when this doesn't work, I need somewhere to return to. Fair enough? They stood in the middle of the guest suite, the afternoon light painting everything gold, and Elena realized she'd just agreed to move back into the home she'd fled 6 months ago, that she was now tied to Roman Viscari in a way that would last the rest of her life, regardless of how much distance she tried to maintain. The baby kicked again, as if in approval, and Elena rested her hand against her stomach. I'm doing this for you, she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to the baby or to herself. Only for you. But when she looked up and met Roman's eyes, saw the hope and determination burning there, she wondered if that was really true. Wondered if some part of her had always been waiting for a reason, any reason, to find her way back to the man who'd broken her heart. And that terrified her most of all. Moving back into the penthouse took less than 3 hours, a stark reminder of how little Elena had accumulated in her 6 months of freedom. 2 suitcases of clothes, a box of art supplies, her laptop, and a handful of personal items that had survived the purge she'd done when leaving Roman. She watched Marcus and another security guard named David carry everything up through the secondary elevator, feeling like she was witnessing the erasure of her independent life in real time. "That's everything," she told Roman, who'd appeared in the doorway of the guest suite as if summoned by her thoughts. "Not much to show for half a year, is it?" "You were surviving, not collecting things." He leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets, that careful distance he'd been maintaining since she agreed to stay. "There's no shame in that. Feels like failure. Feels like strength to me. You left everything comfortable and safe because you had principles." "That's not weakness, Elena." She turned away from the compliment, unsettled by how much she wanted to believe it. "I need to call my landlord. Let him know I'm keeping the apartment but won't be staying there for a while. I'll cover the rent." "No." The word came out sharper than intended. "That's my space, my safety net. I pay for it myself." "Elena, you can barely afford—" "I said no, Roman." She met his eyes, letting him see her determination. "I need something that's completely mine. Something you can't touch or control or take away. Let me have this." A muscle worked in his jaw, but he nodded. "Fine. But if you need anything, furniture for the nursery here, supplies, whatever, you let me provide it. The baby shouldn't suffer because you're being stubborn." "The baby won't suffer. I'm agreeing to stay here, aren't I? They'll have everything they need." "What about what you need?" The question hung between them, loaded with meanings Elena wasn't ready to unpack. She turned back to her suitcases, starting to unzip one. "I need you to leave so I can unpack and settle in. There's a dinner reservation at 7, just downstairs in the building's restaurant. Private room. I thought we could talk about logistics, doctor's appointments, birthing classes, the legal agreement." "Fine. 7 o'clock. Now, please go." He left without argument, and Elena sank onto the bed, pressing her hands against her face. What had she done? She'd moved back into the lion's den, and this time she was carrying the most precious thing in her world, a baby who would tie her to Roman Viscari forever, regardless of how this arrangement played out. The afternoon passed in a strange blur of domesticity. Elena unpacked her clothes, hanging them in the massive walk-in closet that could have fit her entire studio apartment. She arranged her art supplies in the sitting room where the light was good for working. She set up her laptop on the small desk by the window, pulling up her email to find 3 new commission requests waiting. Apparently word of her botanical illustrations was spreading. At 6:30, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror trying to decide what to wear to dinner with her ex-husband. Everything felt wrong, too casual, too formal, too much like she was trying to impress him or not trying hard enough. Finally, she settled on a simple navy dress that accommodated her growing belly without looking like a tent, paired with the delicate silver necklace her mother had given her years ago. Armor, she told herself. Reminders of who she was before Roman, who she'd remain after. The restaurant took up the entire ground floor of the building, an elegant space with soaring ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city lights. But Roman had reserved a private room in the back, intimate and quiet, with a table set for 2 and enough space that Elena didn't feel trapped. He was already there when she arrived, rising as she entered. He'd changed into charcoal slacks and a dark blue shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms in that casually devastating way that had always made her stomach flip. Some things, apparently, hadn't changed. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "I look pregnant and tired." "Still beautiful." He held out her chair, and after a moment's hesitation, she let him seat her. Old habits, old courtesies, old patterns reasserting themselves too easily. They ordered grilled salmon for her, steak for him, sparkling water for both because Elena couldn't drink, and Roman apparently wouldn't in solidarity. The waiter disappeared, leaving them alone with the weight of everything unsaid. "So," Elena began, determined to keep this businesslike. "Logistics. My next doctor's appointment is Thursday at 10. You're welcome to come if you want." "I want." Roman pulled out his phone, adding it to his calendar. What else have I missed? Not much. Monthly checkups, everything normal so far. The baby's measuring on track, heartbeat strong. She hesitated, then added, "We could find out the sex at the next ultrasound if you want to know." Something flickered in his expression. Hope, maybe, or wonder. "Do you want to know?" "I'm not sure. Part of me wants the surprise. Part of me wants to prepare." "Then we wait. Keep the surprise." He leaned forward slightly. "Have you felt them move a lot?" "More and more, especially at night when I'm trying to sleep. I think they're going to be a night owl." "Takes after their father, then." A small smile tugged at his mouth. "I've never been good at sleeping." "I remember." The words slipped out before she could stop them, carrying memories of nights she'd woken to find Roman's side of the bed empty, finding him in his office or standing by the windows, staring out at the city with that haunted look she'd never understood. Now she wondered what demons he'd been wrestling with while she slept, what blood stained his hands while she dreamed peacefully beside him. The food arrived, giving them both an excuse to look away, to reset. Elena forced herself to eat, knowing the baby needed nutrition even if her stomach was twisted with anxiety. Roman ate mechanically, his attention more on her than his plate. "I had my lawyers draw up an agreement," he said finally, pulling a folder from the bag beside his chair. "You can have your own attorney review it, of course, but I tried to include everything we discussed." Elena took the folder, scanning the pages. It was dense legal language, but the key points were clear. She would maintain primary custody. Roman would have unlimited visitation rights. All major decisions about the child's welfare would require her approval, and he would provide full financial support without question or restriction. "There's a clause here about relocation," she noted. "Says I can't move more than 50 miles from the city without your permission. I need to be close enough to be an active parent. Daily visits if possible, not just weekends and holidays. And if I want to leave, want to start over somewhere else? Then we renegotiate. But Elena," his voice softened, "I'm not trying to trap you. I'm trying to make sure I don't lose my child entirely. Can you understand that?" She could. Hated it, but could. "Fine. I'll have someone review this, but it seems fair. There's also a trust fund being established. The baby will never have to worry about money regardless of what happens between us." "How much?" She wasn't sure she wanted to know. "Enough. More than enough. They can go to any school, pursue any dream, live comfortably for life, even if they never work a day." Elena set the papers aside, uncomfortable with the reminder of just how vast the difference was between Roman's resources and her own. "I don't want our child to grow up thinking money solves everything. I want them to understand the value of working for things, of earning what they have." "Agreed. But they should also never have to struggle the way you have these past 6 months, the way you would have continued to struggle if I hadn't found you." "I was managing." "You were drowning." He said it gently, but the truth of it stung. "Elena, there's no shame in accepting help, in letting me provide for our child and for you while you're caring for them. This isn't about pride, isn't it? At least a little?" He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "You've been trying so hard to prove you don't need me, but needing someone isn't weakness. It's human. I needed you once. You used that need to control me. I know, and I'm sorry, more sorry than I have words for, but I'm asking you to see that I'm trying to be different, that this version of us can be different too." Elena pulled her hand back before he could close that final distance. "Don't do that. Don't make this about us. There is no us, Roman. There's just two people trying to raise a child together. For now." "Stop saying that. Stop acting like this is temporary, like I'm going to just wake up one day and forget everything you did. I don't expect you to forget. I'm hoping eventually you might forgive. Why? Why does my forgiveness matter so much to you?" He was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was raw with honesty. "Because you're the only person who ever saw me as something other than a weapon or a threat or a means to an end. When you looked at me, you saw a man, not a monster. And when you left, when you took that away—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "I lost the best part of myself, the part that believed I could be better." Tears burned Elena's eyes, and she blinked them back furiously. "That's not fair. You can't put that on me. I'm not responsible for making you feel human, Roman. That's something you have to find in yourself." I know, and I'm trying. The exit strategy I showed you, that's not just about keeping you and the baby safe. It's about building a life I can actually be proud of. Becoming a man my child won't be ashamed to call father. And if you can't leave that world, if they won't let you, then I make them let me. Whatever it takes. The certainty in his voice should have reassured her. Instead, it terrified her because she knew what whatever it takes meant in Roman's world. Blood, violence, consequences that would ripple out and touch everyone around him. I don't want our child growing up with that hanging over them, she whispered. The fear that someone will come for revenge, the knowledge that their father hurt people. I can't change my past, Elena. I can only change my future. And I'm choosing to change it because of you, because of our baby. She wanted to believe him, wanted it so desperately it physically hurt. But trust, once shattered, couldn't be glued back together with pretty words and promises. They finished dinner in relative silence, the conversation shifting to safer topics, birthing class options, pediatrician recommendations, whether they needed to start interviewing nannies. Elena insisted she wanted to care for the baby herself as much as possible, at least in the early months. Roman agreed, but asked if she'd consider allowing household staff to help with cooking and cleaning so she could focus on recovery and bonding with the baby. I'll think about it, Elena conceded. But I'm not having strangers raising our child. Our child will know their parents, both of them. That's a promise. By the time they finished, exhaustion had settled into Elena's bones. The baby was performing acrobatics, pressing against her ribs in a way that made breathing difficult. Roman noticed her discomfort immediately. You should rest. Come on, I'll walk you back. She wanted to argue that she could find her own way through the building, but the truth was the private elevator access was still unfamiliar, and she wasn't entirely sure she remembered the route. So she let him walk beside her through the quiet restaurant into the service hallway that led to the secondary elevators. The ride up was silent, the air thick with unspoken words. When the doors opened onto her floor, Roman held them with one hand, not exiting, giving her space. If you need anything tonight, anything at all, I'm just across the penthouse. Don't hesitate. I'll be fine. I know you will be, but the offer stands anyway. Elena stepped out, turning back to look at him. In the elevator's soft light, he looked tired, almost vulnerable in a way she'd rarely seen. Roman? Yes? Thank you for dinner, for trying to make this work. Something warm flooded his expression. We're going to figure this out, Elena. All three of us. I promise. The doors slid closed before she could respond, and she was alone in the hallway, one hand pressed to her belly, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life or taken the first step towards something that might actually work. The guest suite felt different now that it was truly hers, lived in, personal, safe. Elena changed into comfortable pajamas, washed her face, and climbed into bed with her laptop, determined to answer those commission emails before sleep claimed her. But her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unable to focus, her mind replaying the evening over and over. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. She tensed, calling out, "Come in!" It was Roman, holding a mug of something that smelled like honey and chamomile. I remembered you used to have trouble sleeping when you were stressed. Thought this might help. He'd remembered. Despite everything, despite 6 months of separation, he'd remembered this small detail about her habits, her needs. Thank you. She took the mug, their fingers brushing briefly. The tea was perfectly prepared, exactly the way she liked it. Light honey, no milk, steeped just long enough. I also brought this. He held up a book, a pregnancy guide she recognized from her own research. I've been reading it, learning what to expect, how to help. There's a section about back pain and sleeping positions. If you want, I could... He stopped, seeming to catch himself. Never mind, that's too much. I'm overstepping. You were going to offer to help with my back pain? He nodded, looking almost embarrassed. The book says massage can help, an elevation, but I know you don't want me touching you, so... Actually, Elena heard herself say, my back is killing me. If you're offering, I'm not too proud to accept. Surprise flickered across his face, followed by something that looked like hope. Are you sure? It's just a massage, Roman. Don't read more into it than that. I won't, I promise. He waited while she arranged herself on the bed, propped up with pillows the way the book probably suggested. Then his hands found her lower back, and Elena nearly gasped at the first touch. His hands were warm, strong, knowing exactly where the tension had gathered. He worked slowly, carefully, reading her responses, adjusting pressure based on her quiet sounds of relief or discomfort. "Is this okay?" he asked softly. "It's good. Really good. Where did you learn to do this?" "The book. And some YouTube videos. I wanted to be useful if you ever let me close enough to help." The thought of Roman Vescari, feared Mafia boss, watching pregnancy massage tutorials on YouTube was so absurd that Elena almost laughed. Instead, she let herself relax into his touch, let the relief wash over her as tension she'd been carrying for months slowly released. "You've been in pain for a while," he observed. "Why didn't you see someone?" "Couldn't afford it. Prenatal massage is expensive." "Elena, don't. We've already had the money conversation tonight." His hands paused. "I hate that you suffered when I could have helped." "You couldn't help? I didn't want you to know I existed, remember?" "Still, knowing you were out there struggling, in pain, alone, it kills me." The raw honesty in his voice made Elena's chest tighten. She turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes. "I wasn't completely alone. I had Margot, some of the other vendors at the market. People were kind. But no one who really knew you. No one who understood what you were going through." "No," she admitted. "No one like that." His hands resumed their work, moving up her spine with practiced care. The baby shifted, seemingly approving of the relaxation, and Elena felt a strange peace settle over her. This was dangerous territory, letting Roman care for her, accepting his tenderness, allowing these small intimacies that blurred the careful lines she'd tried to draw. "I should probably stop," she said, though she made no move to pull away. "Probably," Roman agreed, but his hands continued their steady rhythm. "But you're finally not tensed like you're about to run, and I don't want to lose that." "I'm not going to run. I agreed to stay." "Physically, maybe. But there are other ways to run, and you're an expert at all of them." The observation stung because it was true. Even now, even letting him touch her, she was holding part of herself back, keeping her walls high and reinforced. "Can you blame me?" she asked quietly. "No, I understand it completely. Doesn't mean I like it, but I understand." His hands stilled, resting warm and steady against her back. "I miss you, Elena. Not just the physical parts, though I miss those too. I miss talking to you. Miss the way you'd get excited about a new flower you'd discovered, or how you'd hum while you painted. Miss the way you made even ordinary moments feel special." "Roman, don't—" I know we're not there, may never be there again. But I need you to know, you weren't just my wife. You weren't just someone I married for convenience or appearance. You were the best thing in my life, and losing you broke something in me that I'm not sure can be fixed." Tears slipped down Elena's cheeks before she could stop them. "You should have thought about that before you lied to me for 8 months. Before you let me believe we were building something real, when it was all constructed on deception. It was real. My feelings were real. My love was real. The life I wanted to build with you, that was all completely real. The only lies were about my work, about the parts of my world I was trying to protect you from. Those parts defined who you were, Roman. You can't separate them out and claim the rest was honest. It was all connected." "I know." His hands withdrew, and Elena immediately missed their warmth. "I know, and I'm sorrier than I can ever express, but I'm asking you to consider that maybe I can become something different. Maybe we both can." Elena rolled over carefully, sitting up to face him. He'd settled on the edge of the bed, close but not touching, his expression open in a way she'd rarely seen during their marriage. "I can't be what I was," she said. "That woman who trusted you blindly, who didn't ask hard questions because she didn't want to know the answers, she's gone. You destroyed her when you destroyed my ability to trust you." "Good." The unexpected response startled her. "Good?" That version of you was too willing to ignore her instincts to keep the peace. This version, the one who demands honesty, who sets boundaries, who fights for what she needs, this version is stronger, better. And if we're going to build something real, I need you to be this version. The one who won't let me get away with half-truths and convenient omissions. Elena studied his face, looking for the manipulation, the angle. But all she saw was exhaustion and honesty and something that looked uncomfortably like hope. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," she admitted. "Then I'll spend every day earning it back, however long it takes. Whatever I have to do. And if it's not enough, if I can never get past this," pain flashed through his eyes, "then at least I'll know I tried, that I became someone worth trusting, even if you couldn't bring yourself to do it. And our child will have a father they can believe in, even if their mother can't." The baby kicked hard, as if weighing in on the conversation, and Elena pressed her hand to the spot. Roman's eyes followed the movement, hunger written across his features. Not sexual hunger, but something deeper. The need to be part of this, to share these moments, to connect with the life they'd created. "Do you want to feel?" she offered impulsively. "Can I?" She took his hand, placing it where the baby was moving. For a long moment, nothing happened, and then a strong kick landed right against his palm. Roman's entire face transformed, wonder and joy and something almost like fear. "That's our baby," he whispered. "Really alive. Really growing. Active too. I think they're going to keep us on our toes. I can't wait." He kept his hand there, feeling the movements, and Elena watched emotions play across his features. "Thank you for this, for letting me be part of it. You're their father. You should be part of it. But you didn't have to let me. You could have kept me at arm's length, made this purely transactional. The fact that you're not, it means everything." They sat there in the quiet of the guest suite, Roman's hand on Elena's stomach, the baby moving between them, and for the first time since the farmer's market confrontation, Elena allowed herself to imagine what it might be like if this actually worked. If they could find a way to be parents together, maybe even friends, maybe someday something more. "It's late," she finally said. "You should probably go." Roman withdrew his hand reluctantly. "Right, you need sleep. Both of you do." He stood moving toward the door, then paused. "Elena, I meant what I said earlier, about becoming someone worth trusting. I'm going to prove it to you day by day, choice by choice. You'll see." After he left, Elena lay in the darkness, one hand still pressed to her belly, where Roman's hand had been moments before, feeling the baby's movements slow as sleep claimed them both. She wanted to maintain her walls, keep her distance, protect herself from the inevitable hurt, but some traitorous part of her heart was already softening, already remembering why she'd fallen in love with Roman Viscari in the first place, already wondering if the man she'd married was still in there somewhere, fighting his way back to the surface. And that terrified her more than any threat from his dangerous world ever could. The next morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through the guest suite windows and the smell of fresh coffee drifting from somewhere in the penthouse. Elena woke slowly, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling, the expensive sheets, the sense of space after months in her cramped studio. Then reality settled back in. She was living with Roman again, carrying his baby, navigating an impossible situation with no clear path forward. A soft knock preceded Roman's voice. "Elena, I'm leaving breakfast outside your door. No pressure to eat with me, but I thought you might be hungry." She heard his footsteps retreat before she could respond. When she opened the door a few minutes later, she found a tray with perfectly prepared scrambled eggs, whole wheat toast, fresh fruit, and herbal tea. A small note in Roman's bold handwriting read, "Doctor said protein and hydration. Take care of yourself." Our Elena carried the tray inside, hating how the small gesture made her chest ache. This was part of the problem. Roman was good at these moments of thoughtfulness, at making her feel cared for in ways she'd craved when she was alone. It would be easier to maintain her anger if he was consistently cold or controlling. Instead, he gave her exactly the kind of attention that had made her fall for him in the first place. She ate slowly, planning her day. She had illustration work to complete, emails to answer, her own life to maintain, even while living in Roman's space. After breakfast, she settled in the sitting room with her sketch pad, determined to finish the herb series for the restaurant commission. Around mid-morning, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen. Mr. Vescari asked me to reach out. I'm an OB/GYN with privileges at Metropolitan Hospital. I understand you have a checkup scheduled for Thursday? I'd be happy to take over your care if you're comfortable switching providers. No pressure, Just wanted to introduce myself. Elena stared at the message, frustration building. Roman was already trying to manage her medical care, insert himself into every aspect of her pregnancy. She started typing an angry response, then stopped. Dr. Chen's message had been respectful, had explicitly said no pressure. And if Elena was honest, her current doctor was fine, but not exceptional. She'd chosen the clinic based on cost, not quality. She called Roman instead of texting back. He answered on the first ring. "Did you seriously hire a new doctor for me without asking?" she demanded. "I didn't hire her. I contacted her and asked if she'd be willing to take you as a patient. She's one of the best in the city, Elena. Specializes in high-risk pregnancies." "I'm not high risk. You're carrying my child, which automatically makes you a target. That makes it high risk in my book." His voice was calm, maddeningly reasonable. "Doctor, Chen has experience with patients who need extra security considerations. But if you don't want to switch, I'll respect that. I just wanted to give you the option." Elena closed her eyes, trying to separate legitimate concern from control. "You should have asked me first." "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm used to just making things happen, and I need to remember that's not how this works anymore. Do you want me to tell her you're not interested?" She should say yes, should maintain the boundary, prove she wouldn't accept his high-handed decisions. But Dr. Chen's credentials were impressive based on the quick search Elena had just done, and the idea of a doctor who understood the unique complications of her situation was appealing. "I'll meet with her," Elena said finally. "But I'm making the final decision, not you." "Fair enough. I'll have her set up a consultation before your Thursday appointment. That way you can decide if you want to switch." After they hung up, Elena sat with her phone in her hand, trying to figure out how to navigate this new dynamic. Roman had money, connections, resources that could make her life easier in concrete ways. But accepting those resources meant giving him more influence, more ways to insert himself into her life. Finding the balance felt impossible. The afternoon passed in focused work. Elena finished 2 of the herb illustrations and started sketching a third when another knock interrupted her concentration. This time it was Marcus, holding a large box. "Delivery for you, Ms. Vale." "I didn't order anything. Mr. Vescari did. Said you could return it if you don't want it, but he thought you might need it." Elena took the box warily, setting it on her bed. Inside was a pregnancy pillow, one of the expensive full-body ones designed to support every aching part of a pregnant woman's body. The kind she'd looked at online but never purchased because of the cost. A note was tucked inside. The book said these help. If you hate it, we can exchange it for a different type. R. That damn book. Roman was apparently reading it like a textbook, memorizing every suggestion, trying to anticipate her needs before she voiced them. Part of her wanted to march across the penthouse and tell him to stop, that she didn't need him managing her comfort. But her back still ached from months of poor sleep, and the pillow looked incredibly inviting. She kept it. That night, Roman texted asking if she wanted to join him for dinner or preferred to eat alone. Elena chose alone, not ready for another emotionally charged meal. But when she emerged from her suite to get water around 10, she found him in the main living room, working on his laptop with papers spread across the coffee table. He looked up as she entered, and something vulnerable crossed his face. "Can't sleep?" "Baby's doing gymnastics. You?" "Closing the last of the East Side contracts, transferring operations to someone who'll run it clean." He gestured to the papers. "It's harder than I thought, untangling everything. Every thread I pull reveals 3 more. Elena moved closer, curious despite herself. "How long will it take?" "Months, maybe a year. Some of these partnerships go back decades, but I'm making progress. Every day a little more distance from what I was." She studied the documents, seeing names and numbers that meant nothing to her but clearly represented significant pieces of Roman's empire. "Are you afraid of what happens when you're fully out?" "Terrified," he admitted. "Not for myself, I can handle whatever comes. But for you, for the baby. The transition period is the most dangerous time, when I'm no longer strong enough to command respect but not yet free enough to be left alone. Maybe we should wait then, until after the baby comes, until—" "No!" He closed the laptop, giving her his full attention. "I want to be out before our child is born. Want to hold them in my arms, knowing I'm building a clean future, not dragging them into my past. It's worth the risk. What if something happens to you? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Because despite everything, despite her anger and hurt and determination to keep her distance, Elena realized she didn't want Roman dead, didn't want their child to grow up without a father, didn't want to face this world alone again. "I've made arrangements," Roman said quietly. "If something happens to me, you and the baby are protected. Financially, legally, every way possible. Marcus has instructions to get you out of the city immediately, take you somewhere safe. You'll never have to worry." "That's not what I asked." "I know." He stood, crossing the space between them slowly. "But it's the only answer I can give. I'm doing everything possible to stay alive, Elena, because I want to see our baby grow up. Want to be there for first steps and first words and every moment in between. But I can't guarantee I'll survive this transition. All I can guarantee is that you and our child will be taken care of, no matter what." Elena felt tears threaten and blinked them back furiously. "I don't want your money if you're dead, Roman. Our baby needs their father, not a trust fund." "Then help me stay alive." The request caught her off guard. "What?" "Help me stay alive. Give me something to fight for beyond abstract concepts of redemption. Be my reason to be careful, to be smart, to prioritize survival over pride. I'll fight harder to come home if I know you're waiting, even if you're just waiting to yell at me." A laugh escaped her, watery and unexpected. "You want me to care about you so you'll be more careful?" "I want you to let yourself care about me again, period. But yes, if keeping me alive is a good starting point, I'll take it. This is emotional blackmail. This is honesty. Maybe too much honesty, but I'm trying this new thing where I don't hide how I feel from you." Elena wiped at her eyes, frustrated by her own tears, by how easily he could still reach past her defenses. "Fine. I care. Obviously I care, or I wouldn't be here. Happy?" "Getting there." He lifted his hand as if to touch her face, then caught himself. "Can I hug you? Just for a minute?" She should say no, should maintain the physical distance that helped her keep emotional distance. But she was tired and scared, and her back hurt, and the baby was kicking relentlessly, and Roman's arms looked solid and safe in a way nothing else did. "Just a hug," she conceded. He pulled her in carefully, like she might shatter, wrapping his arms around her in a way that supported rather than confined. Elena let herself lean into him, let herself remember what it felt like to be held, to share the weight she'd been carrying alone. He was warm and solid and smelled like expensive cologne and something uniquely him. And for just a moment, she let herself pretend this might actually work. "Thank you," he murmured against her hair, "for letting me hold you, for being here, for giving me another chance. I haven't given you anything yet except proximity and co-parenting. That's more than I deserve. I'll take it." They stood there in the quiet penthouse, the city lights glittering beyond the windows, the baby moving between them, and Elena felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of willingness to see if forgiveness might be possible someday. When she finally pulled back, Roman let her go immediately, respecting the boundary even as his eyes followed her with unmistakable longing. "I should sleep," Elena said. "Try to, anyway. Use the pillow. It really does help." "How would you know?" "Tested it myself before I sent it. Wanted to make sure it was comfortable." The image of Roman Vescari, dangerous mafia boss, curling up with a pregnancy pillow to test its comfort level was so absurd that Elena laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. "What?" he asked, smiling at her laughter. "Nothing. Just, you're ridiculous sometimes. For you, always." Elena shook her head, but she was still smiling as she headed back to her suite. And when she climbed into bed with the pregnancy pillow arranged around her, supporting her back and belly and knees in exactly the right way, she had to admit it was perfect, just like Roman had known it would be. Damn him. The consultation with Dr. Sarah Chen happened 2 days later in a sleek medical office that occupied the top floor of a building Roman apparently owned. Elena tried not to think about the implications of that as she settled into the comfortable chair across from the doctor, Roman sitting quietly to her left after asking permission to join them. Dr. Chen was younger than Elena expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and an efficiency that suggested competence rather than coldness. She'd reviewed Elena's medical records already and spent the first 20 minutes asking detailed questions about the pregnancy, Elena's health history, her current symptoms and concerns. Your previous doctor did good work, Dr. Chen said, scanning through notes on her tablet. Everything looks healthy and on track. But I do think there are some additional precautions we should consider given your unique circumstances. Unique circumstances, Elena repeated. You mean the part where the father is trying to leave organized crime and someone might target me? I mean the part where you're under unusual stress, which can affect pregnancy outcomes. Dr. Chen's tone was matter-of-fact, non-judgmental. High-stress environments require additional monitoring, more frequent checkups, stress tests, making sure the baby is thriving despite external factors. I'm handling the stress fine. Your blood pressure suggests otherwise. Doctor, Chen showed her the readings from earlier. It's not dangerously high, but it's elevated from your previous appointments. We need to watch that carefully. Preeclampsia can develop quickly, especially in the third trimester. Elena felt Roman tense beside her, though he remained silent. They'd agreed before the appointment that he wouldn't speak unless addressed directly, letting Elena maintain control of her own medical care. What would additional monitoring look like? Elena asked. Weekly appointments instead of monthly. At-home blood pressure monitoring. I'd also recommend we schedule the delivery at a private facility with enhanced security rather than a traditional hospital. I can't afford private delivery. That's covered, Roman said quietly, then caught himself. Sorry, but it is covered, Elena. Whatever you need. Dr. Chen looked between them, clearly understanding more of the dynamic than she was saying. Why don't I give you two a moment to discuss? I'll be back in 5 minutes, and Elena, you can let me know your decision then. After she left, Elena turned to Roman. A private facility? That seems extreme. It's safer. No public records of admission, limited access points, security we can control completely. His voice was careful, measured. But if you want a traditional hospital, we'll make that work too. I'll just station more men, lock down the floor. Your choice. Those are both terrible options. Those are the only options in my world. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. He shifted in his chair to face her more directly. Elena, I know this isn't what you imagined when you thought about having a baby. I know it's not the peaceful, normal experience you deserve, but I'm trying to give you as much choice as possible within the constraints we're working with. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist this was all unnecessary paranoia, but the surveillance photos were still vivid in her memory, and just yesterday Marcus had quietly mentioned increased chatter among Roman's enemies, people taking note of his withdrawal, testing for weakness, looking for leverage. Fine, private facility. But I want to tour it first. Make sure it's actually equipped for complications, not just security. We'll schedule a visit. Roman's relief was palpable. Thank you, Doctor. Chen returned and Elena agreed to switch her care, agreed to the weekly appointments, agreed to all of it because deep down she knew Roman was right. The baby's safety had to come first, even if it meant accepting help she'd sworn she didn't want. The appointment concluded with an ultrasound that showed the baby measuring perfectly, heartbeat strong and steady. Elena watched the screen, feeling the familiar awe of seeing the tiny person growing inside her. Roman watched too, his hand finding hers and squeezing gently when the baby's face became visible. A perfect profile, peaceful and unaware of the complicated world waiting outside. Do you want to know the sex? Dr. Chen asked, pausing the image. Elena looked at Roman, a silent question passing between them. He nodded almost imperceptibly, leaving the choice to her. Yes, she decided. We want to know. It's a boy. Congratulations. A boy. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes as the reality settled in. She was having a son. Roman's son. A little boy who would have his father's eyes, maybe, or his stubborn determination. A son who deserved better than the violence and fear that had defined Roman's world. A boy. Roman breathed beside her, his voice thick with emotion. We're having a son. In the car ride back to the penthouse, Roman was quiet, staring out the window with an expression Elena couldn't quite read. Finally, she asked, What are you thinking? That I need to be better, not just good enough, but actually good. Because I'm going to have a son looking up to me, learning from me, becoming who he is based partly on who I am. He turned to face her. I can't be the man I've been, Elena. I won't survive watching my son realize his father is a monster. Then don't be that man.
I'm trying, but it's harder than I expected and slower. Every day I find another thread connecting me to things I want to leave behind. People who won't let go, deals that can't be easily broken, loyalties that demand blood to sever. What happens if you just walk away? Cut all the threads at once? War. People die, people who work for me, people who depend on me, possibly innocent people caught in the crossfire. I built this empire by being ruthless and strategic. I have to dismantle it the same way, piece by piece, minimizing casualties. Elena absorbed this, trying to reconcile the caring father-to-be beside her with the man who spoke casually about casualties in war. How much longer? 3 months, maybe 4. I'll be clear before our son is born. I have to be. Back at the penthouse, Elena retreated to her suite, emotionally exhausted from the appointment and the revelation about the baby's sex. She pulled out her sketchbook, intending to work, but instead found herself drawing a small face, imagining what her son might look like, trying to capture the features she'd seen so briefly on the ultrasound screen. A boy. She was having Roman's son. The thought terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. That evening, Roman knocked softly before dinner, asking if she wanted to join him for a meal, but clarifying it wasn't at the restaurant this time. I thought we could cook together. If you're comfortable with that. Nothing fancy, just, I used to like cooking with you, before everything fell apart. Elena remembered those evenings, rare moments when Roman would come home early and they'd prepare dinner side by side in the massive penthouse kitchen. He was surprisingly skilled with a knife, and she'd always suspected those skills came from a darker place than culinary school, but she'd never asked, never wanted to know. What are we making? She asked, already knowing she'd say yes. Pasta carbonara, your favorite. It had been her favorite, once upon a time. The fact that he remembered, that he wanted to recreate those peaceful domestic moments, made her chest ache with complicated feelings she didn't want to examine too closely. The kitchen was exactly as she remembered. Professional-grade appliances, marble countertops, every tool imaginable. Roman had already assembled ingredients, and they fell into an old rhythm without discussion. Elena whisked eggs and grated cheese while Roman cooked pancetta and boiled pasta, their movements coordinated like dancers who'd practiced this routine 100 times. I meant what I said earlier, Roman said as he drained the pasta, about needing to be better. When I found out we're having a son, something clicked into place. I can't half-ass this exit strategy. I can't leave loose ends that might come back to hurt him. What changed between this morning and now? I realized I don't want our son to ever have to defend me. Don't want him making excuses at school when kids look up his father's name and find articles about criminal investigations and violence. I want him to be proud of who I am, what I've built, the legitimate parts. Elena added the hot pasta to the egg mixture, stirring quickly to create the creamy sauce. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. That's called being a parent, isn't it? Trying to become someone worthy of your child's admiration? I suppose, though I think most parents are just trying to keep tiny humans alive and relatively sane. We'll do that too. He plated the pasta, adding fresh pepper and extra parmesan the way she liked. But I want to give him more. Want him to have choices I never had. Want him to build whatever life he dreams of without my past casting shadows over it. They carried plates to the dining area, the city lights creating a glittering backdrop beyond the windows. Elena tasted the carbonara and nearly moaned. It was perfect, exactly as she remembered, rich and creamy and comforting. You haven't lost your touch, she said. Some things you don't forget. His eyes held hers across the table, and Elena knew he wasn't just talking about cooking. They ate in companionable silence for a while before Roman spoke again. I've been thinking about names. Do you have any preferences? I haven't really thought about it much. I was too busy trying to survive to plan that far ahead. What about family names? Your parents? Did they have names you'd want to honor? Elena's chest tightened at the mention of her parents. My father was James. My mother was Catherine. James is good, classic, strong. Roman considered it. What about middle names? We could use both. James for first, Catherine for middle in a masculine form. Catherine doesn't really convert well. What about their last names? Maiden names? My mother's maiden name was Kieran. Elena said it softly, remembering her mother's Irish heritage. the stories about ancestors who'd crossed the ocean with nothing but hope and determination. Her family emigrated during the famine, built a life from nothing. She was proud of that history. Kieran, Roman tested the name, letting it roll off his tongue. I like it. Strong but not harsh. Distinctive without being strange. Kieran Viscari. Kieran Vale Viscari, Elena corrected. If we're doing this, he gets my name too. Something fierce and pleased crossed Roman's expression. Kieran Vale Viscari, our son. Hearing the name spoken aloud made it real in a new way. Elena pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling the baby, Kieran, move beneath her palm. What do you think? She whispered. Do you like your name? A strong kick answered her, and she laughed. Roman watched her with such naked longing that it made her breath catch. Can I? He asked, gesturing toward her stomach. She nodded, and his hand joined hers, spanning her belly. Kieran kicked again, seeming to respond to his father's touch. He knows you, Elena said softly. Recognizes your voice, maybe. The books say they can hear outside the womb by now. Kieran, Roman said, speaking directly to her stomach, I'm your father. And I promise you, I'm going to do everything in my power to be the kind of man you can be proud of. I'm going to build you a safe world, a clean future. You're going to have everything I never had, choices, freedom, a father who's present and honest and worthy of your love. Elena felt tears slip down her cheeks at the raw emotion in Roman's voice, at the promises he was making to their unborn son. She wanted to believe he could keep them, wanted it desperately. They finished dinner with Roman's hand still resting on Elena's stomach, connected through their son in a way that felt both fragile and unbreakable. After, Elena retreated to her suite, emotionally drained but somehow lighter than she'd felt in months. Having a name for the baby made him more real, more precious. Kieran. Their son Kieran, who deserved parents who could at least be civil to each other, who could work together for his welfare. Maybe that would be enough. Maybe love could grow back from that foundation of shared purpose and commitment to their child. Or maybe she was just fooling herself, mistaking proximity and old attraction for something more substantial. The next few weeks settled into an unexpected routine. Elena worked on her commissions in the mornings, attended weekly appointments with Dr. Chen in the afternoons. Roman worked from home more often than not, always available if she needed him, but respectful of her space. They shared dinners 3 or 4 times a week, conversations that ranged from logistics about the baby to safer topics like books and art, and the city changing outside their windows. Marcus became a familiar presence, driving Elena to the few outside appointments she insisted on keeping. Lunch with Margot, who'd been delighted and relieved to learn Elena was safe, if shocked by the circumstances. The security guard had a dry sense of humor and an unexpected gentleness that made Elena understand why Roman trusted him so completely. How long have you worked for Roman? She asked one afternoon as Marcus drove her back from a prenatal yoga class Dr. Chen had recommended. 15 years, give or take, since before he fully took over the organization. You've seen him change a lot then. I've seen him survive a lot. Change is newer. Marcus glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. If you don't mind me saying, Ms. Vale, you're good for him. He's more human now than I've ever seen him, more careful with his decisions, more thoughtful about consequences. That might just be fear of fatherhood. It's more than that. He loves you. Anyone with eyes can see it. Question is whether you'll let yourself love him back. Elena looked out the window, watching the city blur past. I did love him. That's what makes this so hard. If I'd never loved him, walking away would have been easy. But I did, and some part of me still does. And I don't know if I can trust that feeling or if it's just old habits and proximity and hope for something that was never really there. Love's always a gamble, ma'am. The question isn't whether you might get hurt, it's whether the potential reward is worth the risk. Only you can answer that. Back at the penthouse, Elena found Roman in his office, staring at his computer screen with an expression she'd learned to recognize: stress, frustration, the weight of impossible choices. She knocked lightly on the open door. Everything okay? He looked up, and something in his face made alarm spike through her. We need to talk. Come in and close the door. Elena's heart rate accelerated as she complied, settling into the chair across from his desk. What happened? Someone made a move. One of my former partners, a man named Viktor Kozlov, decided my exit looks like weakness. He's consolidating territory I've vacated, pressuring people who work for me to switch loyalties. Roman's voice was tight, controlled, but Elena could hear the fury underneath. I expected this, planned for it even, but he's also started asking questions about you. Ice flooded Elena's veins.
What kind of questions? Where you are, who you are, whether the rumors about a baby are true. Roman's hands clenched into fists on his desk. He hasn't found you yet. The security around you is too tight, but he's looking, and Victor is nothing if not persistent. What does he want? Leverage. If he can threaten you and Kieran, he thinks he can force me back into the life I'm trying to leave. Prove that I'm not really out, that I'll always be one of them when it matters.
And will you? The question came out sharper than intended. If he threatens us, will you go back to being the man you were? No. Roman's answer was immediate, absolute. But I will eliminate the threat, permanently. The word hung between them, loaded with implications Elena didn't want to examine. You're going to kill him. I'm going to protect my family. What that requires... He stopped, jaw clenching. I promised you honesty, so here it is. Yes.
If Victor continues threatening you and Kieran, if he can't be reasoned with or bought off or scared away, then yes. I will have him killed, because the alternative is letting him hurt you, and that's not an option I'm willing to consider. Elena felt sick. This was the Roman she'd tried to escape from, the one who spoke casually about murder, who viewed violence as a tool to solve problems. But he was also the Roman who'd prepared a nursery for their son, who read pregnancy books and made her carbonara and promised to be better. There has to be another way, she said. I'm open to suggestions. What if we left? Just disappeared somewhere he couldn't find us? He'd find us eventually, and running would make me look weak, which would encourage others to try the same thing. I'd be fighting off threats for the rest of my life instead of ending this one definitively. What if you gave him what he wants? Territory, money, whatever. It's not about territory or money. It's about respect and power and proving that people can't leave this life whenever they feel like it. If I back down to Victor, every other enemy I've made will come crawling out looking for their piece of me. The only way to truly protect you is to make an example, show that threatening my family is a death sentence, no exceptions. Elena stood abruptly, pacing the office. Roman, I can't live with knowing people are dying because of me, because of Kieran. They're dying because of Victor's choices, not yours. Roman came around the desk, stopping her pacing with gentle hands on her shoulders. Elena, look at me. This is the world I built. These are consequences of my past catching up to me. You didn't create this situation. I did. And I'm going to end it so you and Kieran never have to worry about it again. By becoming a monster. By being what I've always been when it matters. Someone who protects what's his. The difference now is that I'm doing it for the right reasons. Not for power or pride, but for love, for family, for a future where my son doesn't grow up looking over his shoulder. Tears streamed down Elena's face. I don't know if I can do this. Live with this. Know that you're capable of... I know. And I'm sorry. But I won't apologize for keeping you safe. His thumbs brushed away her tears with heartbreaking gentleness. You can hate me for what I have to do. You can leave after Kieran is born and never speak to me again except through lawyers. But you and our son will be alive and safe, and that's worth any price I have to pay. What if the price is losing us? Pain transformed his features. Then I lose you, but at least I lose you alive, with our son in your arms, building whatever life you want somewhere safe. That's a price I can live with, even if it destroys me. Elena pulled away from his touch, wrapping her arms around herself. When is this going to happen? Soon. I'm trying to give Victor one last chance to back off, but if he doesn't take it... Roman's voice was heavy with resignation. Days, maybe a week at most. I need to move before he does. I want to be somewhere else when it happens. Somewhere I don't have to think about it, know about it, imagine it. I'll send you to the private facility. We can say it's a medical precaution that Dr. Chen wants you under observation for a few days. You'll be safe there, comfortable. You won't know anything until it's over. And then what? I come back here and pretend nothing happened? Then you come back here and we figure out what comes next. Together or separately, your choice. But Elena, he caught her hand, pressed it to his chest where his heart was racing. I need you to understand. Everything I'm doing, every choice I'm making, it's all to give Kieran the clean future I promised him. To give you the safety you deserve. This is the last time. The last violent act, the last blood on my hands. After Victor, I'm done, completely out. You can't guarantee that. No, but I can try. And I will spend every day afterward proving that I meant it, that I'm building something better. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that one more act of violence would truly be the last. But she'd learned the hard way that Roman's world didn't work that way, that blood begat blood, that revenge spiraled into endless cycles of retaliation. I need to think, she said finally, pulling her hand back. I need to be alone. Roman let her go without protest, and Elena fled to her suite, locking the door behind her even though she knew it was a symbolic gesture. Roman could get in if he wanted to, but he wouldn't. He'd respect her need for space because that's what he did now, gave her choices, respected her boundaries, tried to be better than he was. She curled up on her bed with her hands on her stomach, feeling Kieran move beneath her palms. I'm sorry, she whispered to her son. I'm so sorry you're being born into this mess. You deserve better. You deserve a normal life with normal parents who have normal problems. But Kieran kicked steadily, peacefully, unconcerned with the violence brewing in the world outside. And Elena realized with sudden clarity that her son would never have a normal life, not completely. Roman's past would always be there, a shadow that might grow larger or smaller, but would never fully disappear. The question was whether she could live with that shadow, whether she could trust Roman to keep it contained, to protect their son from the darkness while still being present as a father. Whether love, if it was even still love, and not just complicated codependency and shared biology, could survive the weight of everything Roman had been and everything he still might have to do. She didn't have an answer. Not yet. But she had a week, maybe less, before Viktor Kozlov forced one from her. Elena spent the next 2 days in her suite as much as possible, avoiding Roman, avoiding conversations about Viktor or violence or impossible choices. She worked frantically on her commissions, threw herself into preparing for Kieran's arrival by researching baby care obsessively, anything to keep her mind occupied. But on the third morning, a soft knock preceded Roman's voice. Elena, there's someone here who needs to speak with you. It's important. She opened the door to find Marcus standing beside Roman, his expression grave. Ms. Vale, we intercepted a message intended for you. I think you need to see it. In Roman's office, Marcus pulled up an email on his laptop, sent to Elena's old email address, the one she'd used before leaving Roman. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear enough. I know about the baby. I know where you're hiding. Roman Veskry thinks he can walk away from his obligations, but family is leverage he can't protect completely. Give him a message for me. Stay in the game or watch everything he loves burn. You have 3 days to convince him. VK. Elena's hand shook as she read it twice, 3 times, the threat becoming more real with each pass. He knows about Kieran. He knows where we are. He knows the building, Roman corrected. He doesn't know the floor or which apartment, and he can't get past building security. I own this place, control every access point. But Elena, he's escalating faster than I expected. 3 days isn't enough time to move you somewhere safer. What are you going to do? Roman's expression went cold, distant, the face of the man she'd tried to escape. I'm going to end this tonight. Viktor wants a response? He'll get one. Roman, no, there's no other option now. He threatened our son by name. He crossed a line I drew in blood years ago, and he knew exactly what he was doing. This ends tonight, or it never ends. Marcus nodded grimly. I've already assembled the team. We move at midnight. Elena felt reality tilt, felt the careful peace of the past week shatter completely. You're going to start a war. I'm going to end one, Roman corrected. Viktor made his choice when he sent that message. Now I'm making mine. What about Kieran? What about our son growing up without a father because you got killed trying to protect us? That's why I'm moving tonight, fast and clean, before he has time to prepare a proper defense. Elena, I know you hate this. I know you wanted me to find a peaceful solution, but Victor took that option off the table. Now I have to do what I've always done. Eliminate threats before they eliminate me. And if you don't come back? If Victor kills you first? Roman crossed to her, cupping her face in his hands. Then Marcus has instructions to get you out of the country immediately. Switzerland, probably. I have resources there, people who owe me favors. You and Kieran will be safe and provided for, no matter what happens to me. I don't want money and safety in Switzerland. I want... She stopped, unable to finish the thought. What do you want, Elena? I want you to come back.
The admission broke something open in her chest. I want you alive. I want Kieran to have his father. I want... Tears choked her voice. I want us to have a chance, a real chance, not just co-parenting, but actually trying to build something together. Roman's eyes closed briefly, like he was in pain. Then I'll come back. I promise you I'll come back. You can't promise that. Watch me. He kissed her forehead gently. I have too much to lose now to take stupid risks.
This will be surgical, in and out, no unnecessary exposure. Victor will be gone. His key lieutenants will be given a choice to back off or join him, and I'll be home before dawn, okay? It wasn't okay. None of this was okay. But Elena nodded anyway because what other choice did she have? Victor had made his move and Roman had to respond or risk everything they'd been building. I want you to go to the medical facility now, Roman continued. Marcus will drive you. Stay with you. Doctor, Chen is on standby in case the stress triggers any pregnancy complications. You'll be safe there, completely isolated from whatever happens tonight. I don't want to be isolated. I want to know what's happening. No, you don't. Trust me. You don't want those images in your head. His voice was gentle but firm. Let me do this, Elena. Let me protect you the only way I know how. And when I come back, we'll figure out what comes next, together. Elena let Marcus guide her to the car, let him drive her to the private medical facility in the hills overlooking the city. Dr. Chen met them at the entrance, professional and calm, settling Elena into a comfortable suite that looked more like a luxury hotel room than a hospital. Your blood pressure is elevated, Dr. Chen noted after checking her vitals. Not dangerous yet, but we'll monitor it closely. Try to rest. I'll be right down the hall if you need anything. Rest. As if Elena could rest knowing Roman was about to walk into a situation that could get him killed. She lay on the bed, hands on her stomach, feeling Kieran's movements and trying not to imagine what was happening across the city. The hours crawled past. Midnight came and went. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Elena dozed fitfully, waking every few minutes to check her phone for messages that didn't come. Marcus sat outside her door, a silent guardian, refusing to give her updates when she asked. Mr. Vescari will contact you when it's safe, was all he would say. At 4:30 in the morning, Elena's phone finally buzzed. A text from Roman. It's done. Victor's gone. Coming to you now. She started crying before she could stop herself. Relief, fear, grief for the violence that had been necessary, gratitude that Roman was alive. 20 minutes later, she heard voices in the hallway, and then Roman was there, standing in her doorway, looking exhausted and haunted, but blessedly whole. You came back, she whispered. I promised I would. He crossed the room slowly like he wasn't sure he'd be welcome. Elena, She didn't let him finish, just pulled him down to her, holding him tightly while tears soaked into his shirt. He wrapped his arms around her carefully, mindful of her belly, and they stayed like that for long minutes, breathing together, anchored in each other, alive. Is it really over? Elena asked finally. The immediate threat is over. Victor's organization is in chaos. I made it very clear what happens to anyone who threatens my family. But Elena, there might be consequences, retaliation. I know. She pulled back to look at him. But you're out now? Really out? Really out. I severed the last ties tonight. Whatever comes next, it won't be because I'm still in the game. It'll be echoes of what I was, and I'll handle those as they come. But the active part of my involvement, that's done. Elena searched his face, looking for the monster she'd feared. But all she saw was a tired man who'd done terrible things for what he believed were the right reasons. A man who'd kept his promise to come back to her.
A man who was trying, however imperfectly, to be better. "Take me home," she said. "Take us both home." Roman helped her gather her things, and they rode back to the penthouse in silence as dawn broke over the city. The world looked different in the early morning light, softer somehow, full of possibility instead of threat. Roman kept his hand on hers the entire drive, like he needed the physical connection to believe she was real. Back at the penthouse, Elena headed toward the guest suite out of habit, then stopped. Roman paused too, watching her with careful hope. "I don't want to sleep alone tonight," she admitted quietly.
I don't want to be in my suite wondering if you're okay, replaying everything that might have happened. Would it be okay if I stayed with you? Just to sleep, nothing more." "Yes." The word came out rough with emotion. "Yes, Elena. Of course." His bedroom was exactly as she remembered. Massive bed with soft sheets, windows overlooking the city, the masculine simplicity that was pure Roman. She climbed in and he joined her carefully, maintaining distance until she shifted closer, resting her head on his chest where she could hear his heartbeat. "Tell me it's going to be okay," she whispered. "Even if you're lying, tell me we're going to figure this out. That Kieran is going to be safe and loved and happy." "It's going to be okay," Roman murmured into her hair, his arms coming around her. "We're going to figure this out. Our son is going to have everything he needs, including parents who love him more than anything in this world. I promise you, Elena. Whatever it takes, I'll make sure you and Kieran have the life you deserve." She wanted to believe him, and in that moment, wrapped in his arms with dawn light spilling through the windows and their son moving peacefully between them, she almost did. Elena woke to find herself still curled against Roman's chest, his arm wrapped protectively around her and their son. Sunlight streamed through the windows, suggesting it was late morning, and for the first time in months, she felt genuinely rested. Safe. The word settled into her consciousness with unexpected weight. She felt safe in a way she hadn't since discovering the truth about Roman's world. She shifted slightly, and Roman stirred, his eyes opening to meet hers. For a moment, neither spoke, both seemingly afraid that words might shatter whatever fragile peace they'd found in the quiet of his bedroom. "How long have you been awake?" he asked finally, his voice rough with sleep. "Just now. What time is it?" He glanced at the clock on the nightstand. "Almost 11. We should probably eat something. Kieran needs breakfast even if we don't." The casual use of their son's name, the easy way Roman included himself in caring for Elena's needs, made her chest tighten with complicated emotions. She sat up slowly, her back protesting the movement despite the pregnancy pillow Roman had apparently retrieved from her suite at some point during the night. "I should check in with Dr. Chen," Elena said, reaching for her phone. "Let her know we're back." "Already done. I texted her around 7 to let her know you were safe and resting. She wants to see you tomorrow for a follow-up. Make sure last night's stress didn't cause any complications." Elena scrolled through her phone, finding not just Roman's message to Dr. Chen, but also several texts from Marcus updating her on security measures, a message from Margot asking if she was okay, and 3 emails from potential clients interested in commissioning work. Life continuing despite the violence that had erupted just hours ago. "Has there been any blowback?" she asked. "From last night?" Roman's expression shuddered slightly. "Some. Victor's second-in-command is making noise about retaliation, but Marcus is handling it. The message was clear enough. Anyone who comes after my family meets the same fate Victor did. Most people aren't stupid enough to test that." "Most people?" "The ones who are stupid enough won't last long." He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather, and Elena was reminded yet again of the fundamental difference between them. Roman had lived in this world so long that violence had become mundane, just another tool in his arsenal. "I need to shower," she said, needing space to process everything. "Can I use your bathroom, or should I go back to my suite?" "Use whatever you want. This is your home too, Elena. I meant what I said about not keeping you caged here." He stood, pulling on a t-shirt that did nothing to hide the defined muscles underneath. "I'll make breakfast. Any requests?" "Just something simple. Toast and eggs, maybe?" After he left, Elena stood in the center of Roman's bedroom, trying to reconcile the violence she knew he was capable of with the man who'd just offered to make her breakfast, who'd held her through the night without demanding anything in return. The disconnect was dizzying. The shower helped clear her head, hot water easing the tension she carried in her shoulders and lower back.
She dressed in comfortable clothes from her suite. Roman had apparently retrieved a bag of her things,
And found him in the kitchen as promised, scrambling eggs while toast browned in the expensive toaster she'd always been slightly afraid to use. Sit, he instructed, gesturing to the counter. Food's almost ready. Elena perched on a stool, watching him work with the easy competence she'd always found attractive. Where did you learn to cook? You never told me. My mother taught me the basics before she died. After that, it was survival. Cooking for myself was cheaper than eating out all the time, and I learned early not to trust food prepared by people who might want me dead. The casual mention of assassination attempts should have shocked her. Instead, it just made her sad, imagining a younger Roman, alone and suspicious, unable to even accept a meal without calculating the risk. How old were you when your mother died? 13. Cancer, nothing dramatic. She fought it for 2 years, but in the end, he shrugged, plating the eggs. After that, I was in the system for a while. That's where I met Marcus, actually. He was a counselor at one of the group homes, saw something in me worth saving, gave me structure, taught me to channel my anger into something productive instead of destructive. Is that when you got involved in... Elena couldn't quite finish the question. When I got involved in organized crime? No, that came later. Marcus tried to keep me clean, but I was drawn to power, to control, to never being helpless again the way I'd been helpless watching my mother waste away. He set a plate in front of her, his expression distant with memory. By the time I was 18, I'd made enough connections to start building my own operation. Marcus tried to stop me, but eventually he realized he could be more effective protecting me from inside the organization than watching me self-destruct from outside. He's been with you that long? 15 years this month. He's the closest thing to family I had before I met you. Roman settled on the stool beside her, close but not touching. That's why I trust him with your safety. Marcus isn't just an employee. He's the man who kept me alive long enough to become someone worth knowing. Elena ate slowly, processing this new information about Roman's past. She'd known his mother died young, but he'd never shared details, never opened up about the loneliness and fear that must have shaped him. Understanding the roots of his need for control didn't excuse his lies, but it did help her see them in a different context. What would you have become? She asked quietly. If your mother had lived? If you'd had a stable childhood? I don't know, something legitimate maybe. She wanted me to go to college, become an architect or engineer. She used to say I had good hands for building things. He looked down at those hands, calloused and scarred and undeniably dangerous. Instead, I built an empire on other people's suffering. Not exactly what she had in mind. You're building something different now. With the legitimate businesses, with planning for Kieran's future. Maybe she'd be proud of that. Maybe. Or maybe she'd be horrified by what I had to become to get here. Roman turned to face her fully. Elena, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it without interrupting. Can you do that? Anxiety spiked through her, but she nodded. Okay. Last night, when I thought there was a real chance I might not come back, I made arrangements. Legal documents, financial structures, everything necessary to ensure you and Kieran would be protected if I died. But I also wrote you a letter, told you everything I've never been brave enough to say directly. And when I survived, when I came back and found you waiting, I realized I couldn't keep hiding behind what-ifs and maybes. So I'm just going to say it now. He took her hand, his thumb stroking across her knuckles in a gesture that felt achingly familiar. I love you. I've loved you since the night we met, when you told me my taste in art was pretentious, and then proceeded to explain why with such passion and knowledge that I couldn't do anything but fall. I loved you through our entire marriage, even when I was lying about my work, even when I knew I should let you go for your own safety. And I loved you every single day you were gone, wondering where you were, if you were okay, if you'd ever forgive me enough to give me another chance. Tears blurred Elena's vision, but she stayed silent, letting him continue as promised. Kieran wasn't planned, but he's the greatest gift you could have given me. Not just a son, but proof that something good came from us, that our time together created something beautiful and innocent and full of potential. And these past weeks, living with you again, feeling him move, planning for his future, I've fallen in love with you all over again. With this stronger, fiercer version of you who doesn't let me get away with anything, who demands honesty and sets boundaries and refuses to be anything less than your full, authentic self. He pressed her hand to his chest over his racing heart. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I broke your trust in ways that might be irreparable. But, Elena, I'm asking anyway. Not for you to decide today or even this month, just for you to consider the possibility. Consider that maybe we could build something real this time, something honest and strong enough to survive the weight of my past. Consider that maybe the man I'm becoming is someone you could love again, or at least someone you could trust to be a true partner instead of just a co-parent. He stopped, searching her face for a reaction. Elena felt tears streaming down her cheeks, felt her heart cracking open in ways that terrified her, because she wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this version of Roman, vulnerable and honest and trying so hard to be better, was real and not just another manipulation. I'm scared, she whispered. Roman, I'm so scared of letting you in again, only to discover it was all performance, that you were just playing a role until you got what you wanted. I know, and I don't blame you for that fear. I earned it with every lie I told, every truth I concealed. He released her hand but didn't move away. So I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to watch what I do, not just what I say. Judge me by my actions over time, not by promises that are easy to make and hard to keep. And if you see me backsliding, if you catch me in dishonesty or manipulation, call me on it immediately. Hold me accountable. And if I can never fully trust you again, if the fear is always there, then we figure out how to work with that. How to build a relationship that acknowledges the damage and works around it. Couples therapy, complete financial transparency, whatever structures you need to feel safe. Elena, I'm willing to do the work. Whatever it takes, for however long it takes. I just need to know you're willing to try. Elena stood, needing to move, to pace, to process the enormity of what he was asking. She walked to the windows, looking out at the city where somewhere Viktor Kozlov's body was probably still being cleaned up by people who specialized in making problems disappear. The juxtaposition of Roman's declaration of love against the backdrop of violence he'd committed mere hours ago made her head spin. I need time, she said finally. I need to see who you are now that the immediate danger is past, now that you've actually left the life you were so deeply embedded in. I need to know if this version of you, the one who makes me breakfast and reads pregnancy books and promises honesty, is sustainable, or if it's just crisis mode Roman who will disappear once things settle down. Fair enough. How much time? I don't know, weeks, months maybe, until Kieran is born at least. Can you give me that? Can you be patient while I figure out if this is real? I can give you whatever you need. Roman crossed to her, stopping just close enough that she could feel his warmth. But Elena, I want you to know something. Whether you ever love me again or not, whether we ever become more than co-parents, I'm going to keep being this version of myself. Not to win you back, but because it's who I need to be for Kieran. So if you're waiting to see if I'll revert to my old ways once I have what I want, you'll be waiting forever because I already have what I want. A son, a chance to be a father, the opportunity to build a legacy based on something other than fear and violence. And me? Do you have me? I have you in my home, in my life, in my son. If that's all I ever get, I'll find a way to be grateful for it. But I'm hoping for more. Hoping that someday you'll look at me and see a partner instead of a threat. A man you can build a life with instead of one you're just tolerating for Kieran's sake. Elena turned to face him fully, this complicated man who'd destroyed her trust and was now trying so desperately to rebuild it. I can't promise anything. I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for possibility, for a chance to prove myself over time. She studied his face, seeing exhaustion and hope and something that looked like barely contained fear. He was vulnerable in a way she'd never witnessed before, and that vulnerability was perhaps the most compelling evidence that he'd truly changed. Okay, she said softly. Possibility. I can give you that much. The relief that flooded his expression was almost painful to witness. He didn't reach for her, didn't push for more than she'd offered, just nodded and said, "Thank you. That's more than I deserve and everything I needed to hear." They stood there in the morning light, the remains of breakfast cooling on the counter, Kieran moving gently between them, and Elena let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it might be like if this actually worked, if trust could be rebuilt and love rekindled and family forged from the broken pieces of what they'd been. It seemed impossible. But then again, so had escaping Roman's world, surviving 6 months alone, carrying a baby through stress and fear and isolation. She'd already done impossible things. Maybe one more wasn't out of reach. The following weeks unfolded with surprising normalcy. Roman maintained his respectful distance, sleeping in his own room while Elena returned to the guest suite, but they fell into rhythms that felt almost domestic. Breakfast together most mornings, dinner 3 or 4 times a week. Long conversations about everything from Kieran's future to Elena's art to Roman's plans for his legitimate businesses. True to his word, Roman provided complete transparency about his finances. Elena met with his accountant, reviewed documentation of the exit from his criminal enterprises, saw proof that income now flowed from real estate holdings, security consulting, and investment portfolios. It was more money than she could fully comprehend, but it was clean, or as clean as wealth built on a violent foundation could ever be, Doctor. Chen's weekly appointments showed Kieran thriving despite the stress of recent events. Elena's blood pressure stabilized, and the baby's measurements stayed perfectly on track. They toured the private medical facility where she'd deliver, and Elena had to admit the security measures didn't feel oppressive, just thorough, careful, designed to protect rather than imprison. Marcus taught Elena basic security protocols, not to scare her, but to empower her with knowledge. How to recognize if she was being followed, what to do if someone approached her aggressively, emergency contact procedures. Elena appreciated the practical approach, the way he treated her like an adult capable of handling difficult information rather than a fragile thing to be sheltered. Margot visited twice, charmed by the penthouse, but clearly concerned about Elena's situation. "You sure you know what you're doing?" she asked during the second visit, after Roman had excused himself to give them privacy. "Getting back involved with a man like that?" "I'm not getting back involved. We're co-parenting." "Honey, I've seen the way he looks at you, and the way you look at him when you think no one's watching. That's not co-parenting. That's 2 people still in love trying to figure out how to forgive each other." Elena couldn't deny it. The attraction was still there, stronger maybe than it had been during their marriage, because now it was tempered with hard-won knowledge and honest communication. She found herself noticing small things, the way Roman's face softened when he talked to her stomach, telling Kieran about his day, how he'd started leaving little notes with her breakfast, nothing dramatic, just small observations or words of encouragement. The gentleness in his hands when he helped her up from low chairs as her belly grew larger and her balance more precarious. One evening, around 30 weeks into the pregnancy, Elena was struggling to reach a book on a high shelf in the penthouse library when Roman appeared behind her. "Let me get that," he said, easily retrieving the volume she'd been stretching for. "You shouldn't be climbing on stepladders this pregnant." "I wasn't climbing, I was just reaching." Still, he handed her the book, a collection of Irish folklore she'd been meaning to read. "What's this for?" "I wanted to read some of the old stories. Thought maybe I could tell them to Kieran, give him a connection to my mother's heritage." She ran her hand over the worn cover. "My mom used to tell me these tales when I was little, about selkies and fairies and heroes who were brave but also kind. I'd like to hear them too, if you want to share." Elena settled into one of the comfortable reading chairs, and Roman sat across from her, attention focused completely on her face as she began reading aloud. The story was about a seal woman who married a fisherman, gave him children, but ultimately had to return to the sea when she found her hidden skin. It was melancholy and beautiful, and when Elena finished, she found tears on her cheeks. "Why are you crying?" Roman asked gently. Because she had to choose between the life she had built on land and her true nature, between her children and her freedom. And there was no right answer. Either choice meant losing something essential. "Do you feel like that? Like you're being forced to choose between parts of yourself?" Elena considered the question carefully. "Sometimes. The part of me that wants independence and safety wars with the part that wants family and partnership. The part that loved you wars with the part that can't forget how you hurt me. It's exhausting, never being fully one thing or another." "What if you didn't have to choose? What if you could be both, independent and partnered, cautious and loving, holding on to your boundaries while also opening your heart? Roman leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That's what I'm trying to build for us, Elena. A relationship where you don't have to sacrifice essential parts of yourself to make it work. Is that even possible? I don't know, but I think it's worth trying to find out. He paused, then added, the seal woman in the story, did she love her husband? The stories vary. In some versions, yes. In others, she was trapped by his theft of her skin, and leaving was an escape. But in the version my mother told, she loved him deeply. She just loved the sea more, or maybe differently, and she couldn't be whole without both. Then maybe the tragedy isn't that she left, Roman said thoughtfully. Maybe it's that they never found a way for her to have both. That the husband couldn't understand her need for the water, couldn't see that letting her swim free would have made her happier, more fully herself. Maybe if he'd been less possessive, less focused on keeping her contained, she could have stayed. The parallel to their own situation was so obvious that Elena almost laughed. Are you saying you're going to let me swim free? I'm saying I'm trying to learn from that fisherman's mistakes. Trying to understand that loving someone doesn't mean owning them or controlling them. That the tighter I hold, the more you'll need to escape. But if I can love you with open hands, maybe you'll choose to stay. Elena set the book aside, her heart too full to keep reading. When did you get so wise about relationships? When I lost you and had 6 months to think about every mistake I made. When I realized that everything I'd done to keep you safe had actually driven you away. He smiled sadly. Pain is an excellent teacher, and I had a lot of painful lessons to learn. That night, Elena dreamed of swimming in dark water, feeling pulled between depths and shore, drowning and flying simultaneously. She woke gasping, one hand on her belly, and found a text from Roman sent 20 minutes earlier. Can't sleep. If you're awake and want company, I'm in the kitchen making tea. She found him as promised, standing by the window with a steaming mug, staring out at the city. He turned when he heard her enter, concern immediate on his face. Bad dream? Strange dream, about swimming and choosing and not being able to breathe. She accepted the mug of tea he poured for her. Why are you awake? Thinking about Kieran, about whether I can actually be the father he deserves. Whether I can teach him to be good when I've spent so much of my life being the opposite. You're not the opposite of good, Roman. You're complicated. You've done terrible things, but you've also protected people, provided for them, shown loyalty and care. Kieran will need to know all of that. Not just the sanitized version where you were always a hero, but the real version where you were human and flawed and trying to be better. What if knowing the truth makes him ashamed of me? Elena moved to stand beside him at the window, shoulder to shoulder, both of them reflected in the dark glass. Then you deal with it honestly. You don't lie or minimize. You explain your choices, accept responsibility for the harm you caused, and show him through your current actions that people can change. That's all any parent can do. Be honest about their failures and demonstrate how to do better. I'm terrified of screwing this up. Me too. I'm terrified of everything. Labor, being responsible for a tiny human, making the wrong decisions and damaging him in ways I won't understand until he's in therapy 20 years from now. She laughed shakily. But we'll figure it out together. That's what co-parents do, right? Is that all we are? Co-parents? The question hung between them, heavy with hope and fear. Elena looked at their reflections in the window, Roman tall and solid beside her smaller frame, her belly prominent between them, two people trying to find their way back to each other through darkness and doubt. I don't know what we are, she admitted, but we're something. Something more than we were a month ago. Something different than we were when I left. Maybe that's enough for now. It's enough. Roman's hand found hers in the darkness, fingers interlacing. Whatever you can give, Elena. It's enough. They stood like that until their tea grew cold, watching the city sleep, feeling Kieran move between them. And Elena let herself hope, carefully, guardedly, that maybe they were building something worth believing in after all. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Elena was working on an illustration in the sitting room when Marcus appeared, his expression tense in a way that immediately put her on alert. Ms. Vale, there are two people downstairs who claim to be family. They're asking to see you. Elena's stomach dropped. I don't have any family. My parents are dead and I don't have siblings. They say they're cousins, from your mother's side. They have identification, photos of your mother when she was younger. Mr. Vescari is in a meeting, but I thought you should know before I send them away. Cousins? Elena's mother had mentioned family in Ireland, distant relatives she'd lost touch with after emigrating, but Elena had never met any of them. Why would they show up now, after all these years?
What are their names? Brendan and Siobhan Kieran. They say your mother was their Aunt Catherine.
The use of her mother's name, of the Kieran surname she'd given to her son, made this feel real in a way that was both thrilling and deeply unsettling. Let them up. But stay close, please, just in case. Marcus nodded and disappeared. 10 minutes later, he returned with two people who looked to be in their early 30s, a man with red gold hair and sharp green eyes, and a woman with dark curls and features that reminded Elena startlingly of her own mother.
Elena? The woman's accent was pure Irish, lilting and warm. I'm Siobhan. This is my brother Brendan. We're so sorry to just appear like this, but we've been trying to find you for months. Why? Elena stayed seated, one hand protectively on her belly. Why now, after all these years? Brendan pulled out a folder, setting it carefully on the coffee table. Because your grandmother, our grandmother, your mother's mother, passed away 6 months ago. She left something for you in her will, but we couldn't locate you to deliver it. I didn't know I had a grandmother still alive. Your mother cut ties with the family when she came to America, Siobhan explained gently. There was a falling out over her marrying your father. He wasn't Catholic, wasn't Irish, and our grandmother was very traditional. But near the end, she regretted the estrangement. She left you a letter and some money. Not a fortune, but enough to matter. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. A grandmother she'd never known, reaching out from beyond the grave. How did you find me? We hired an investigator, found records of your marriage to Roman Viscari, but then you disappeared from public view. The investigator finally tracked you to this building. Brendan glanced around the expensive penthouse. Seems like you've done well for yourself. It's complicated, Elena said, unwilling to explain the full truth to strangers, even if they were blood relatives. May I? Siobhan gestured to the folder. At Elena's nod, she opened it, pulling out an envelope yellowed with age. This is your grandmother's letter, and there are some photographs, your mother as a girl, family history we thought you might want. Elena took the envelope with shaking hands, seeing her name written in unfamiliar handwriting across the front. Inside was a letter written on delicate paper, the words slightly faded but still legible. Dear Elena, I am writing this knowing I may never have the courage to send it, knowing I may die before finding you. Your mother and I parted in anger over 30 years ago, and my pride kept me from reaching out, from apologizing, from telling her how much I loved her despite our differences. I hear she died some years ago, and that grief is mine to carry. But you are her legacy, and mine as well. I hope you have her kindness, her strength, her fierce love of beauty and truth. I hope you have built a life that would make her proud. I'm leaving you what little I can, some money, some photographs, the story of where you come from. The Kierans have always been fighters and dreamers, builders and storytellers. We survive because we adapt, because we love fiercely, because we know that family is worth fighting for even when it's hard. Wherever you are, whatever you've become, know that you come from a long line of strong women. Your great-grandmother crossed an ocean with 3 children and no money, built a life from nothing. Your mother did the same, choosing love over tradition. And now you carry that strength forward into whatever future you're building. I'm sorry I never got to meet you. Sorry for the years lost to stubbornness and pride. But I'm grateful knowing you exist, that Catherine's love lives on in you. With love and regret, your grandmother, Mairead Kieran. Elena was crying openly by the time she finished, the letter clutched to her chest. Siobhan moved closer, settling beside her on the couch with the easy familiarity of family. She was a difficult woman, Siobhan said softly, stubborn and traditional and set in her ways. But she loved deeply, and she regretted the break with your mother until the day she died. This letter, she wrote it 5 years ago but could never bring herself to mail it. Why not? Pride, fear, shame over the time that had passed. All the reasons people use to avoid doing hard things. Brendan's expression was understanding. But she wanted you to have it eventually. Wanted you to know you come from people who survive, who endure. The money, Elena managed through her tears. How much? 50,000 euros. Converted to dollars, maybe 65,000.
Enough for a good start on something. Education, a business, security for a child. Siobhan's eyes dropped to Elena's belly.
Is this your first? Yes, a boy, due in about 10 weeks. And the father? Brendan's tone was carefully neutral. Roman Viscari? We read about him while trying to find you. His reputation is concerning. He's complicated. We're complicated. But he's trying to be better, and that has to count for something. Elena wiped at her tears. I'm sorry, this is all overwhelming. I thought I had no family left, and now you're here, and there was a grandmother I never knew, and... Breathe, Siobhan instructed, rubbing Elena's back in soothing circles. It's a lot to take in. We're not here to disrupt your life or make demands. We just wanted to deliver what's yours and let you know you have family. Cousins in Dublin who would love to know you, to be part of your life if you want that. The door opened and Roman appeared, clearly summoned by Marcus. His eyes went immediately to Elena, seeing her tears, and his expression hardened. What's wrong? What did you say to her? Nothing bad, Elena said quickly, before her cousins could answer. Roman, this is Siobhan and Brendan Kieran, my mother's family. They brought me a letter from my grandmother. Understanding replaced the protective aggression on Roman's face. He moved to Elena's side, one hand settling on her shoulder in silent support. Your grandmother? She died 6 months ago. Left me money, and this. Elena held up the letter. I have family, real family, people who knew my mother, who can tell me stories about where I come from. Roman's hand squeezed her shoulder gently. That's wonderful, Elena. I'm happy for you.
The four of them spent the next hour talking, Siobhan and Brendan sharing stories about Catherine as a wild young girl in Dublin, showing Elena photographs of a mother she'd only known as an adult. There was laughter mixed with tears, and by the time her cousins prepared to leave, Elena felt connected to her past in a way she never had before. We're staying in the city for a few more days, Siobhan said, hugging Elena carefully around her pregnant belly. We'd love to see you again before we go back. Maybe dinner tomorrow? I'd like that. Elena held on to her cousin's hand. Thank you for finding me, for bringing me this. Your family, that's what family does. After they left, Elena sat in silence, rereading her grandmother's letter while Roman made her tea without being asked. He set the mug beside her, then settled on the couch, giving her space to process. $65,000, Elena said finally. That's more money than I've ever had at once. More than I've made in 3 years of freelancing combined. What will you do with it? I don't know. Save it for Kieran's education, maybe. Or invest it, make it grow so he has options I never had. She looked up at Roman. My grandmother said the Kierans are survivors, that we adapt and endure. She had no idea how right she was. You've proven that every day since leaving me, surviving alone, building a life from nothing, protecting our son, even when it meant accepting help from the man who hurt you. Roman's voice was soft with admiration. Your grandmother would be proud of you, Elena. I'm certain of that. I wish she could have met Kieran, could have known I named him after her family. She knows. Somehow, somewhere she knows. And she knows you're going to raise him with the same strength and love that got you through everything you've survived. Elena set down the letter, reaching for Roman's hand. Thank you. For giving me space with them. For not being threatened by more family in my life. Why would I be threatened? I want you to have people who love you, support you. Want Kieran to grow up knowing he has roots deeper than just what I can provide. He looked at her intently. You're not alone anymore, Elena. You have cousins in Ireland. You have me, you have Marcus and Dr. Chen and Margot. You have a whole community forming around you, and our son will benefit from all of it. For the first time since discovering her pregnancy, Elena felt genuinely hopeful about the future. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just protecting Kieran from Roman's past, but giving him access to a rich tapestry of family and history and love. Maybe this could actually work. Maybe they could build something real, something strong enough to hold the weight of everything they'd been through. Maybe possibility was enough to start with, and trust would grow from there over time. Roman, she said softly, would you hold me? Just for a minute? He didn't answer with words,
just gathered her carefully into his arms, letting her burrow into his chest while his hands made soothing patterns on her back.
Kieran moved between them, and Elena let herself imagine the three of them as a real family, imperfect and complicated, but bound by love, and the determination to be better than their broken beginnings. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was close. And right now, that felt like enough. The weeks that followed felt suspended in time, as if the universe was holding its breath along with Elena. She spent her days preparing for Kieran's arrival with an intensity that bordered on obsession, washing and rewashing tiny clothes, organizing the nursery until every item had its designated place, reading every parenting book she could find. Roman watched her nesting instincts with gentle amusement, occasionally stepping in when she pushed herself too hard. "Elena, the changing table doesn't need to be reorganized for the 5th time," he said one afternoon, finding her at 36 weeks attempting to rearrange supplies while balanced precariously on a step stool. "The wipes should be within easier reach. What if I'm holding him and can't stretch far enough? Then I'll hand you the wipes, or you'll adjust the setup after he's born and you know what actually works." Roman guided her carefully down from the stool. "Come sit with me. You've been on your feet for 3 hours. Elena wanted to argue, but her back was screaming and her ankles had swollen to nearly twice their normal size. She let him lead her to the rocking chair, sighing with relief as she settled into its cushioned comfort. "Dr. Chen said he could come any time now," she said, one hand on her belly where Kieran was performing what felt like acrobatic routines. "I thought I'd feel ready, but I'm terrified. What if I don't know what to do? What if I can't figure out what he needs?" "Then we'll figure it out together. That's what parents do. They learn alongside their children." Roman knelt beside the chair, his hand joining hers on her stomach. "You're going to be an amazing mother, Elena. You're already so protective of him, so thoughtful about his future. That instinct won't disappear when he's born. What if something goes wrong during delivery? What if Dr. Chen is the best? The facility is equipped for any complication, and I'll be right there with you through all of it." His eyes met hers, fierce with conviction. "Nothing is going to happen to either of you. I won't allow it." Elena almost smiled at his certainty, at the way Roman seemed to believe he could control even childbirth through sheer force of will. "You can't protect us from everything. Watch me try." That evening, they had dinner with Siobhan and Brendan, who were extending their stay in the city specifically to meet Kieran after he was born. Over wine for the others and sparkling water for Elena, they shared stories about the Kieran family history, tales of rebellion and survival, of women who'd fought for their children's futures against impossible odds. "Your great-great-grandmother hid British soldiers in her barn during the Rising," Brendan said, refilling Roman's wine glass. "Got herself arrested for it, but she never gave up the names of the resistance fighters she was protecting. Spent 6 months in prison rather than betray people fighting for freedom." "Stubbornness runs in the family," Siobhan added with a knowing look at Elena. "Once a Kieran woman decides something is right, hell itself couldn't change her mind." "I've noticed," Roman said dryly, and Elena kicked him gently under the table. After her cousins left, promising to return as soon as Elena went into labor, she and Roman stood together in the nursery, looking at the space they'd created for their son. The mural seemed to glow in the soft lamplight, birds frozen mid-flight among flowering branches. "Are you scared?" Elena asked quietly. "About becoming a father?" "Terrified, but also excited doesn't seem like a strong enough word. Awed, maybe. Humbled by the responsibility and desperate not to screw it up." He turned to face her. "What about you?" "All of that plus the physical terror of actually getting him out of my body." She laughed shakily. "The books and videos don't really prepare you for how intense it's going to be. You're the strongest person I know. If anyone can do this, you can. I'm not that strong. I'm just stubborn, like my great-great-grandmother, apparently. Stubbornness is its own kind of strength." Roman's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb stroking her cheek in a gesture that had become familiar over the past weeks. "Elena, whatever happens between us after Kieran is born, I want you to know, these months with you have been some of the best of my life. Getting to prepare for our son together, building this foundation of honesty and partnership, learning who you are when you're not running from me. It's been a gift I never expected to receive." Elena's chest tightened with emotion.
Roman, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, chaste and sweet. Get some rest. Kieran will be here before we know it, and then sleep becomes a distant memory. That night, Elena lay in the guest suite bed, though she spent most nights in Roman's room now, finding comfort in his presence even as they maintained careful physical boundaries, and tried to imagine what life would look like in a week, a month, a year. She still hadn't decided what they were to each other, still hadn't committed to anything beyond co-parenting. But the possibility Roman had asked for had grown into something that felt dangerously close to hope. The first contraction hit at 3 a.m. 2 days later, a tight band of pressure that woke Elena from restless sleep. She lay still, counting seconds, waiting to see if another would follow. 20 minutes later, when the second contraction gripped her, she knew this was it. She found Roman already awake in the kitchen, working on his laptop. He looked up as she entered, and something in her expression must have telegraphed the news because he was on his feet immediately. Is it time? I think so. Contractions are still far apart, but Dr. Chen said to call when they started. Roman already had his phone out, dialing. While he spoke with the doctor, Elena focused on breathing through another contraction, gripping the counter for support. When it passed, she found Roman watching her with barely controlled panic. Dr. Chen says to time them for another hour. If they're getting closer together or more intense, we go to the facility. If they stay irregular, we wait. The next hour was an exercise in patience neither of them possessed well. Roman timed contractions with obsessive precision while Elena paced, unable to sit still as her body prepared to bring their son into the world. By 4:30, the contractions were 7 minutes apart and intensifying. We're going, Roman declared, already texting Marcus to bring the car around. Dr. Chen said to wait until they're 5 minutes apart. I don't care what Dr. Chen said. I'm not having my son born in a car because we waited too long. We're going now. Elena was too uncomfortable to argue. She let Roman help her into comfortable clothes, grab the hospital bag she'd packed weeks ago, and guide her to the elevator. Marcus was waiting with the car, his usual stoic expression showing hints of actual emotion. Good luck, Ms. Vale, he said as he held the door. You're going to do great. The private facility was a 20-minute drive into the hills, and every bump in the road sent new waves of discomfort through Elena's body. Roman held her hand the entire way, his grip probably painful, but Elena needed the anchor. By the time they arrived, her contractions were 5 minutes apart, and she could no longer talk through them. Dr. Chen met them at the entrance, calm and professional. And within minutes, Elena was settled in a luxurious birthing suite that looked more like a hotel room than a medical facility. The bed was comfortable, the lights were soft, and Roman refused to leave her side even when the nurses needed to do examinations. You doing okay? He asked, after a particularly intense contraction left Elena gasping. Define okay. I'm about to push a human being out of my body, and it hurts worse than I imagined possible. But yeah, I'm okay. You're incredible, do you know that? Absolutely incredible. The hours blurred together in a haze of contractions, breathing exercises, Roman's steady presence beside her holding her hand and whispering encouragement. Dr. Chen monitored Kieran's heartbeat, assuring them both that he was tolerating labor well. Elena had declined an epidural initially, wanting to feel everything, but around hour 6 she reconsidered. I changed my mind. I want the drugs. All the drugs. You're doing so well without them, Dr. Chen said. But if you want pain relief, we can arrange it. She wants it, Roman said firmly. Elena, if you're in pain, there's no reason to suffer. This isn't a test of strength. But I wanted to do it naturally, and you've done it naturally for 6 hours. You've proven whatever you needed to prove. Now let them help you. The epidural brought blessed relief, though Elena felt oddly detached from her own body, watching the contractions register on the monitor without feeling their full intensity. Roman never left her side, feeding her ice chips, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, telling her stories about the life they'd built with Kieran to distract her from exhaustion. We'll take him to the park on Sundays, Roman said. Teach him to feed the ducks, and when he's older, we'll go to museums. Let him explore and ask questions. I want him to be curious about the world, unafraid of learning. You'll teach him to cook, Elena added, make carbonara together like we used to. And I'll teach him about art, about seeing beauty in ordinary things.
He'll have your talent for finding grace in small moments, your ability to make people feel seen and valued, your strength wrapped in gentleness. He'll have your determination, your loyalty, your fierce protection of people you love. They built their son's future in words, painting a picture of a childhood filled with love and stability, and all the things both of them had lacked. And in doing so, they rebuilt themselves too, not as the broken people who'd hurt each other, but as partners committed to giving their child everything they'd never had. At hour 12, Dr. Chen declared Elena fully dilated and ready to push. The epidural had worn down enough that Elena could feel pressure and the urge to bear down, but the sharp edge of pain was manageable. Roman moved to support her shoulders, letting her grip his hands with bruising force as she pushed through contractions. "You're doing amazing," he murmured. "So strong, so incredible. I'm in awe of you, Elena, completely in awe. I'm going to break your fingers. Break them. I don't care, whatever you need." Time fractured into moments of pushing, breathing, resting. Elena heard Dr. Chen's encouragement, felt Roman's solid presence, but mostly she focused inward on the monumental task of bringing Kieran into the world. Just when she thought she couldn't do it anymore, "Couldn't push one more time, doctor," Chen said the words she'd been waiting for. "One more push, Elena. I can see his head. One more and you'll meet your son." Elena bore down with everything she had left, feeling the impossible pressure and stretch, and then suddenly release as Kieran slipped free into Dr. Chen's waiting hands. For a moment there was silence, terrifying, endless silence. And then a cry split the air, angry and strong and absolutely perfect. "He's here," Dr. Chen said, lifting the baby so Elena could see. "Kieran Vale Vescari, welcome to the world." Elena was crying before she even registered the tears, holding out her arms for the squalling infant Dr. Chen placed on her chest. He was red and wrinkled and covered in vernix, and he was the most beautiful thing Elena had ever seen. She looked up at Roman, needing to share this moment, and found his face wet with tears, his expression transformed by wonder. "We made him," she whispered. "Roman, we made this perfect little person. You made him. You grew him and brought him into the world. His voice broke. "I just get to love you both for the rest of my life." Kieran's cries settled as Elena held him against her skin, and his eyes opened, dark like Roman's, unfocused but searching. Roman reached out tentatively, touching their son's tiny hand, and Kieran's fingers wrapped around his father's with surprising strength. "Hello, Kieran," Roman said softly. "I'm your dad, and I promise you're going to have everything. Safety and love and a future so bright it'll hurt to look at. You'll never doubt that you're wanted, never question that you're loved. I'm going to spend every day earning the privilege of being your father." Elena watched them, her son, and the man she'd run from and found her way back to, and felt something settle into place in her chest. This was her family, complicated and imperfect and built on broken foundations, but family nonetheless. The next hours passed in a blur of measurements and tests, of nurses cleaning Kieran and wrapping him in soft blankets, of Elena delivering the placenta and being stitched up while Roman held their son with the careful reverence of someone handling the most precious thing in existence. By the time they were finally alone in the recovery room, exhaustion had settled into Elena's bones, but she couldn't stop staring at Kieran sleeping peacefully in the clear bassinet beside her bed. "He's really here," she said to Roman, who'd pulled a chair as close to her bed as possible without actually climbing in. "I kept thinking something would go wrong, that it couldn't possibly work out this well. But he's here, and he's perfect, and we're both okay." "You're more than okay. You're extraordinary." Roman's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Elena, I know we haven't defined what we are to each other. I know you needed time to decide if you could trust me again. But watching you bring our son into the world, seeing you be so strong and brave and absolutely radiant, I'm more in love with you now than I've ever been. And if you need more time, I'll give it to you. If you need space, I'll respect it. But I need you to know, I'm all in, completely committed to building a life with you if you'll have me." Elena looked at him, really looked, seeing not the dangerous man who'd lied to her, but the father who'd just promised their son the world, the partner who'd held her through 12 hours of labor without complaint, the person who'd spent months proving through actions that he could be trusted. "I'm scared," she admitted.
terrified that I'm making the same mistake, that the trust I'm rebuilding will shatter again.
That's fair. I earned that fear, and I'll spend as long as it takes proving it's unfounded. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. But Elena, I think you know, we're already building a life together. We've been building it these past months, one honest conversation and shared moment at a time. The question isn't whether we're partners. We already are. The question is whether you're ready to call it what it is. And what is it? Love. Messy and complicated and built on hard-earned trust instead of blind faith, but love nonetheless. He met her eyes directly. I love you. I love our son. And I want to make this official, not rushing back into marriage, but acknowledging that we're committed to each other, to building something real and lasting. Elena felt tears slide down her cheeks as she looked from Roman to Kieran and back again. Her family. The people she'd do anything to protect. The ones who made her feel both vulnerable and invincible. She'd spent 6 months running from Roman and months more holding him at arm's length. But somewhere along the way, through honesty and patience and the shared goal of giving Kieran the best possible life, she'd fallen in love with him again. Not the same love as before, that had been built on incomplete information and comfortable illusions. This love was harder, earned through difficult conversations and conscious choices, and the daily decision to trust even when fear whispered that she shouldn't. This love knew the worst about both of them and chose to stay anyway. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Roman's voice held cautious hope. Okay, I'm ready to call it what it is. I love you, Roman. Not the version of you I thought I married, but the real you, flawed and complicated and trying so hard to be better. I love the father you're already being to Kieran. I love the partner you've become over these past months, and I'm ready to build something real with you. Relief and joy transformed Roman's features. He stood, leaning over to kiss her gently, carefully, like she was made of glass. Thank you. Thank you for giving me another chance, for letting me prove I could be worthy of you and our son. I won't waste it, Elena. I promise you that. I know. I believe you. And she did. Finally, after everything, she actually believed. They were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Marcus entered, looking uncharacteristically emotional as his eyes went to the bassinet where Kieran slept. Congratulations, he said quietly. How is everyone? Perfect, Roman answered. Absolutely perfect. Marcus. Meet Kieran Vale Vescari. Kieran, this is Marcus, the man who's going to help keep you safe and who will probably teach you how to change a tire and throw a proper punch when you're older. Marcus approached the bassinet carefully, looking down at the sleeping infant with something close to wonder. He's beautiful. Looks like his mother, thank everything. Hey, Roman protested without heat. He has my nose. Poor kid, Elena laughed, the sound exhausted but genuine. Marcus, thank you for everything these past months, for protecting us, for being patient with my stubbornness, for being Roman's conscience when he needed one. It's been my honor, Ms. Vale. Seeing him become the man he is now, that's been worth everything. Marcus turned to Roman. Your other visitors are waiting in the lounge. Should I send them away, or are you up for company? Who's here? Elena asked. Dr. Chen wanted to check on you one more time. And Siobhan and Brendan flew back when they heard you'd gone into labor. They understand if you're too tired, but... Send them in, Elena said. I want Kieran to meet his family. Over the next hour, the room filled with people who loved them. Dr. Chen examined Elena and declared her recovery progressing perfectly. Siobhan cried, holding Kieran, pointing out how he had the Kieran eyes, dark, but with flecks of green when the light hit them right. Brendan promised to teach him Irish drinking songs when he was older, earning a laugh from everyone. Watching her son pass carefully from person to person, seeing the community that had formed around them, Elena felt overwhelming gratitude. Kieran would grow up surrounded by love, not just from his parents, but from this chosen family they'd built. He'd know his heritage through Siobhan and Brendan's stories. He'd learn strength from Marcus. He'd have Dr. Chen watching over his health with the same care she'd provided Elena. As the visitors finally left and Elena settled back against her pillows, with Kieran nursing at her breast, Roman sat beside them on the bed, his arm around Elena's shoulders, and she felt something that had been fractured inside her finally knit back together. What are you thinking? Roman asked softly. That I spent 6 months convinced keeping Kieran away from you was the only way to keep him safe. But this, having you here, building this family together, this is actually what safety looks like. Not running or hiding, but standing together and facing whatever comes. I'll spend my life making sure you never regret choosing to stay. I know. Elena leaned into him, feeling Kieran's warmth against her chest, Roman's steady heartbeat beneath her ear. We're going to be okay, aren't they? All three of us? Better than okay. We're going to be extraordinary. They stayed like that as Kieran nursed and then fell asleep, as the sun set outside the windows and the city lights began to twinkle. The future stretched ahead, uncertain in specifics but solid in its foundation of love and commitment and the fierce determination to protect this small person they'd created. 2 days later, they brought Kieran home to the penthouse. Roman had installed a car seat with obsessive precision, and Elena clutched the handle of Kieran's carrier like it was the most precious cargo in the world, which it was. Marcus drove carefully, avoiding bumps, while Roman sat in back with Elena, both of them unable to stop staring at their sleeping son. The penthouse had been transformed in small ways, baby monitors installed, outlets covered, sharp corners padded. Roman had thought of everything, and Elena felt a rush of affection for this man who protected them with such thorough attention to detail. That first week was a blur of sleepless nights, learning Kieran's cries, figuring out feeding and diaper changes, and the 1,000 small tasks that came with caring for a newborn. Roman was up for every night feeding, bringing Kieran to Elena for nursing, and then handling the burping and changing while she dozed. They worked as a team, falling into rhythms that felt natural despite the exhaustion. On their 5th night home, Elena woke at 3 a.m. to find Roman's side of the bed empty. She'd officially moved into his room after they brought Kieran home, the guest suite abandoned without discussion. Following the soft sounds, she found Roman in the nursery, holding Kieran against his chest, while rocking slowly in the chair by the window. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly from the doorway. Roman looked up, his face soft with love as he gazed down at their son. "Just wanted to hold him. Sometimes I still can't believe he's real. That you gave me this gift." Elena moved to sit on the ottoman beside the rocking chair, watching them together. "We gave each other this gift. Kieran exists because we loved each other even when that love was complicated and painful. I used to think love meant possession, that keeping you safe meant keeping you contained." Roman's voice was quiet, reflective. "But loving you now, loving both of you, I understand it's the opposite. Love is letting you be free while choosing to stay. It's trusting you to make your own decisions while being there to support whatever you choose. It's building something together instead of one person controlling the structure." "When did you get so wise?" "When I lost you and had to figure out how to become someone worthy of getting you back." He looked up from Kieran to meet her eyes. "Elena, I know we said we wouldn't rush into marriage again, but I want you to know, when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm going to ask you to marry me again. A real marriage this time, built on honesty and partnership. No pressure, no timeline. Just know that's where my heart is." Elena felt tears prick her eyes, but they were happy tears this time. "Ask me." "What?" "Ask me now. I'm ready." Roman's eyes widened. "Elena, you just gave birth 5 days ago. You're exhausted and emotional, and I know what I want. I want to marry you, Roman. Not because of Kieran, not because it's convenient or expected, but because I love you, because I choose you, because I want to build a life with you deliberately, consciously, with full knowledge of who we both are." She took his free hand. "So ask me." He shifted Kieran carefully, then slid off the rocking chair to kneel beside the ottoman, still holding their sleeping son. "Elena Vale, mother of my child, love of my life, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of the trust you're placing in me? Will you build this family with me, officially and permanently?" "Yes, absolutely yes." Roman's smile was brighter than she'd ever seen it, joy transforming his features. He couldn't kiss her properly while holding Kieran, so she leaned in, pressing her lips to his in a gentle promise of everything they were choosing together. "I don't have a ring yet," Roman said. "I was waiting until you were ready, didn't want to pressure. I don't need a ring right now, I just need this. You and me and Kieran, building something real. She touched their son's soft hair. We can do the formal engagement later, plan a real wedding when I'm not recovering from childbirth. For now, this is enough. They moved back to bed together. Kieran settled in his bassinet beside them, and Elena curled into Roman's arms with a sense of peace she'd never quite achieved before. This was what she'd been searching for when she ran. Not escape from Roman, but escape from the lies and fear and uncertainty. And somehow, through loss and pain and the hard work of rebuilding trust, they'd found their way to something better than what they'd had before. The months that followed were a blur of milestones. Kieran's first smile, his first laugh, the way his eyes tracked movement and his hands began to grasp purposefully. Roman proved to be a devoted father, changing diapers without complaint, singing lullabies in a surprisingly good voice, spending hours just watching their son sleep with an expression of pure wonder. Elena returned to her illustration work gradually, finding that motherhood had deepened her appreciation for beauty and fragility. Her new pieces had a richness they'd lacked before, and commissions increased as word spread. She was building a career she was proud of, on her own terms, while Roman supported her without trying to control or manage. They took Kieran to meet Margot at the farmer's market when he was 6 weeks old, and Elena felt the circle complete somehow. This place where Roman had found her, where her secret had been revealed, was now where she could show off the beautiful result of that confrontation. Margot cried holding Kieran, declaring him perfect and making Elena promise to bring him back regularly. Siobhan and Brendan visited twice more, staying for extended periods and filling the penthouse with stories and laughter. They taught Elena recipes from her grandmother, shared more photographs, helped her feel connected to roots she'd thought were lost forever. Kieran would grow up knowing his Irish heritage, understanding where the strength in his blood came from. 8 months after Kieran's birth, Roman proposed officially, with a ring this time, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds that caught the light like captured fire. They were in the park on a Sunday afternoon, Kieran babbling happily in his stroller, when Roman dropped to one knee on the grass and asked the question again with their son as witness. "Yes," Elena said through happy tears. "Always yes." They planned a small ceremony for Kieran's first birthday, wanting to celebrate their commitment in the same breath as celebrating their son's arrival into the world. The wedding was nothing like their first, no grand cathedral or hundreds of guests. Instead, they married in the penthouse, surrounded by the people who'd helped them build this second chance. Marcus stood as Roman's best man, Siobhan as Elena's maid of honor. Dr. Chen was there, and Margot, and a handful of others who'd become family through choice rather than blood. Elena wore a simple dress in soft blue, her hair loose the way Roman loved it. Kieran, dressed in a tiny suit that made everyone's hearts melt, was passed between guests throughout the ceremony. When Elena and Roman exchanged vows they'd written themselves, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I promise to tell you the truth, even when it's hard," Roman said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I promise to trust you to make your own choices while supporting whatever you decide. I promise to be the father Kieran deserves and the partner you need. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life." "I promise to forgive without forgetting," Elena replied, tears streaming down her face. "To remember where we've been while focusing on where we're going. I promise to trust you with my heart, even when fear tells me not to. I promise to build this life with you deliberately, consciously, with full knowledge that love is a choice we make every single day. And I promise to choose you, Roman, today and always." When they kissed, sealing their promises, Kieran let out a happy shriek as if in approval. Everyone laughed, and the solemnity of the moment gave way to celebration, food and music and toasts that ranged from heartfelt to hilarious. Late that night, after the guests had left and Kieran was sleeping peacefully in his crib, Elena and Roman stood in their bedroom, not his bedroom or her bedroom, but the space they'd truly made theirs together. "Mrs. Vescari," Roman said, pulling her close. "How does it feel?" "Different than the first time. Better. Like it actually means something now." She looked up at him. "I never thought we'd get here. When I left, when I was hiding from you, I couldn't imagine a future where we'd be happy together. But here we are." "Here we are," he agreed, "building something real, something that will last." "Do you ever regret it? Leaving that world behind, giving up the power you had?" Roman considered the question seriously. Sometimes I miss the certainty of it. Knowing my place, understanding the rules even if they were violent ones. But then I look at you, at Kieran, at the life we're building, and I know I made the right choice. This is worth more than any empire. You are worth more than any amount of power. Kieran's going to ask questions eventually, about your past, about what you did before he was born. I know, and I'll answer honestly, age appropriately. I'll tell him that I made mistakes, hurt people, built something I'm not proud of. But I'll also tell him that I changed because of him, because of you. That love made me want to be better. And I'll hope that's enough. It will be. Because you're showing him every day what it looks like to choose good over easy, to fight for what matters, to love with your whole heart. They stood together in the quiet, listening to Kieran's soft breathing through the monitor, feeling the weight and wonder of the life they'd built. It hadn't been easy. Nothing worth having ever was. But they'd fought for this, earned it through honesty and patience, and the willingness to be vulnerable even when it terrified them. 2 years later, standing in the garden of the home they'd bought together, a real house with a yard where Kieran could